Hey guys, what's up? It is week 110, and I got a bunch of stuff on my plate today. This video is probably going to be 18 days long. Just let you guys know, addressing some things with the Patreon and everything going on. Last week I felt that I was a little burned out on some of the view. You watch 10 movies a week, and by the time you start talking about the one you first watched early on in the week, I feel like maybe sometimes you leave out more details than you should, but I like the weekly format, so I'm trying to keep that for you. But it's not going anywhere. I'm just letting you guys know. I feel like I was a little burnt out last week, so I want to excuse King. I want to apologize to you guys. And the written reviews I feel were really lackluster. I don't, and I feel like maybe it's just that I feel that at this point in time, no one bothers with the written reviews, reading them. So I just kind of focus more on the video stuff, and then by the time it comes to do the written reviews, I just slog through them sometimes, unfortunately, which is the case. Not always, but I feel that sometimes I do slog through them, and then I go back and read it. And I'm like, man, that's embarrassing. I shouldn't have put my name on that. But just letting you guys know, there's tons of stuff, like I said. Of course, this is like the 6th week of Hammer, so we got the last double feature, then we go into some singles, and we also have a Thralls of Metal interview. They are a bunch of YouTubers. There's like a group of metal guys. One of them is one of my best friends, so I knew that this guy knew a ton about metal, and they're entertaining, funny guys. They have a YouTube channel. The link will be below. They're going to start doing stuff for Screaming Toilet as well, trying to grow that, that brand and have a bunch of different people on there. But these guys are experts, and I recommend you check out their channel if you like metal or music, or just they're pretty funny guys anyways. You'll see a kind of like a video with a couple of them in here, Nick and Joe, and we talk a little bit about Deathgasm, and This Is Spinal Tap, and some other heavy metal horror movies, and just they talk about metal. And to be honest, if you guys know me, I'm not like a metal expert. I'm not huge on the metal. I've always been about the movies. Some stuff I like, but it's like I'm just basically I barely know what that. I don't really know what I'm talking about, so I kind of avoid the metal talk and just kind of dive into the movies. But that's later in the video. It's like an hour long. Hopefully, if you don't see it at the end of this one, it will be in the next week's video, because I have so much to edit in. I don't want the video to be like 3 hours long for you guys. But first and foremost, I want to start this out with a very special review of a box set. And I'm going to go these individually. I don't want to review them just as a set because they're such unique films. But this is the American Horror Project Volume 2. Arrow did this one a while ago, the original American Horror Project, and it had 3 films in there. And the kind of deal with this was to see like these kind of forgotten regional filmmakers that, like, what if George Romero and Tobe Hooper weren't the ones that got the recognition? What if these guys were, and they showcased 3 kind of unique regional horror films that could have, kind of changed the course of American cinema? We had the films like Premonition, which is an interesting movie with Richard Lynch, and there was also Malatesta's Carnival of Horror, or Carnival of Blood, I believe it's called, and The Witch Who Came from the Sea, which is a video nasty and a really dark drama. All 3 movies I felt were interesting to great. I really enjoyed the set. I enjoyed the presentation. So I was waiting for a very long time for this second one to come out, and I gotta say, man, they really knocked it out of the park here. Let me start with the first movie, Dream No Evil. This is directed by Alan Hayes. And saying this, I find it super interesting. John Hayes. I always want to say Alan Hayes. But I find it super interesting that these movies, it's not just about the movie itself. It's also about the history of the movie and the product of the movie and everything like that. So they dive deep into the special features, and they get the best people for it. Of course, Stephen Thrower is involved with this particular movie and all 3 movies, this whole release. So he's on everything on here. But let me get into the movie, Dream No Evil. This, like I said, the director was John Hayes, and he's a very interesting guy, and they go to the history and the commentary and everything like that. But he directed some horror films that people might be familiar with. Garden of the Dead from '72, which I am familiar with. It was a childhood favorite of mine. It's a really weird movie with prisoners that try to do a prison break after sniffing a bunch of formaldehyde, and they come back to life, and they use all these tools to attack. It's goofy and weird, but it always had a certain charm to it, and I always enjoyed it. It's been years since I visited it. And he also did Grave of the Vampire with Michael Pataki, who's also in this film, and that one's supposed to have a really strange cult following as well. That one I haven't seen. Scream Factory recently released it, so I'm interested in that. So he also did this one, Dream No Evil. And this movie, all three of these movies, but in this one, it opens up with this girl in an orphanage, and she wakes up and she's young and it's dark and it's really creepy, and she starts screaming for her father, and she's like, "Dad, Dad, come get me, Dad, come get me," and it's really kind of sad, and she ends up running out and waking everybody up, and the leader, like not the leader, but the person who's running the orphanage tells her, "Your dad's dead, he's not coming for you," and it just sets up this whole movie into this weird kind of loss and really bothersome, to be honest. And this is the kind of stuff you'd watch at a young age and it wouldn't affect you, but once you have like these like dark things that happen to you in real life, where you just grow up and you start to understand how disturbing some of this stuff actually could be to somebody, it kind of affects you. And it goes to the girl's all grown up now, and she's working in this weird kind of traveling circus slash like religious group, or it's led by Michael Pataki, and he's like this evangelical like healing preacher, and she's traveling with him. Kind of, you get the idea. She's dating his brother as well, who's a doctor. And so you have these two different these healing practices, where one's a doctor and one's this faith healer. So, and she's got caught in the middle of it. And you get the idea that she's traveling along with him because she's on the quest to find her father. And they go through the town, and her father used to live there. So you feel that her father isn't dead, that he abandoned her, or something happened where he couldn't take care of her. He was a truck driver. So there's that going on. But Pataki in this movie is really weird. He reminds me of like an eviler Bill Murray in Kingpin, but a faith healer, and he's just going over the top with the crowd, and just and they have this strange kind of like giant show to get the people's audience, where she jumps off this high place to land on something, and it's just like the show of it all. So it's like this carny aspect, this carny weird southwestern religious aspect all into it. Really strange, really kind of bizarre. Well, basically, she ends up going to look for her father in this small town, and she runs into some strange characters, and she ends up. I don't want to spoil too much, but I kind of have to basically set up the plot here a little bit. Well, she finds out that her father has passed, so she goes to with this pimp slash undertaker, believe it or not, to see the body, and the father is played by legendary actor Edmund O'Brien. I mostly know from The Wild Bunch, which kind of blew my mind that he was in this kind of low rent regional horror film that I had never heard of until this thing showed up, until this was announced. And I was like, wow, Edmund O'Brien's in this movie. That's kind of interesting. So he's on the slab, and he starts to move, and he comes back to life, and he actually kills the Undertaker, and that sets up the relationship between her and her father. And the movie has this strange narration throughout that basically is telling you what's happening, even though you can kind of grasp what's happening with the psychology of the lead character. So I'm like, was this added in post? Why was this added in post? Was this kind of like dumbing it down for the audience, even though you kind of could tell what's going on? But there's these strange moments where the lead character starts to battle with her own psychology, and that is kind of scary. And her own sexuality is involved with her psychology, and it's a duality, and the like loss of her parent, her father plays into it. Edmund O'Brien's really good in this. He's really kind of intimidating, and the performance by the lead is really kind of sad and tragic, but also scary. You can't not compare this to obviously being inspired by something like Psycho, especially they pull the whole thing at the end where they basically almost look at the camera and say, this is what was wrong with her psychology. This is why she did this. And you're like, I kind of gathered a lot of that, but thanks for the information. In 1960 with Psycho, we could have used that, maybe some of us, but this, not so much. But regardless, it was always intriguing to me, and the characters, even the side characters like the sheriff, they're not super like annoying, and they don't feel like the same box two-dimensional or one-dimensional characters, I should say, that you get in a lot of other films. But the sheriff actually has a conversation with her boyfriend, who's the doctor, and says, "Why aren't you up there?" He's like, "Well, I'm a doctor of science," and he's like, "Oh," and like he seems a little like he doesn't approve it, but he's also, but that's okay at the same time. I like that. It's really interesting, and I think that the psychology of the character is really interesting as well. I actually like this one quite a bit. I was surprised by it. The performances are good. It has some nice camera angles. I thought if I remember correctly, like you watch so many movies, I think that all three of these movies had some camera work that I thought was special. I think this one has some tracking. I think the next one has better, but there is some like establishing shots that look really pretty as well. Like it's a weird, endearing, but batshit kind of exploitation psychological thing, but it never feels like it's just sheer exploitation. And it's got a classic genre actor, not genre, he's in a bunch of stuff, big time actor in it who is kind of like on his end, but he still does a good job. That's the difference between actors that from back in the day from now to me. Like a lot of times they'll be like, well, so and so was just cashing in a check, but even when they cash in the check, they deliver the goods for me because they have screen presence. And even if I don't think they like shuffle through their roles as much as a lot of the actors do nowadays. Like they're not pulling Bruce Willis's where it's like, let's get this over with, okay? You know what I mean? I don't not that I want to pick on Bruce Willis, but that's what I feel like sometimes I watch some of his newer films. But I don't think like a lot of these old classic actors, they were like appreciative, get work, they loved it, they live for it. So and the performance is good and weird and strange. I really love this movie actually. And when you watch a lot of horror movies, sometimes you got to go to like the regional or exploitation stuff, and it's a lot dark drama. It's not really, like I guess people will be like, well, it's kind of like a proto slasher at the same time, and it can be, but interesting stuff. The features are really what helps this release as well. Besides, it's remastered. It looks really great. It sounds great. Unfortunately, I couldn't get the trailers or the Arrow kind of puts up their trailers for these a lot of times. They're not up yet, so you'll be seeing crummy looking versions of the trailers, unfortunately, but. Man, this one looks good. It sounds good. It has a commentary by Kat Ellinger and Sam Deacon, and they do such a good job on this stuff. They're experts on the director, and they do his whole filmography. They talk a lot about it. They talk a lot, and they do the Daughters of Darkness podcast, which I listened to just recently, and I was like, man, it's shame on me for not listening to this. They're great, and they do a lot of other commentaries I've heard, and I always appreciate their input. They're very intelligent, and they have some laughs with each other. It's just they're really good at what they do, and they're highly educated in the subject matter. Top-notch commentary. On here as well, Stephen Thrower appreciation for Dream No Evil, which I also love Stephen Thrower. Again, the same can be said about him. Loves what he does, and he does a great job. And there's also he goes into like the early films of this director and talks about the history, because this guy really didn't get much recognition from anyone except Stephen Thrower until now. So he wrote about him in Nightmare in USA, his book. So they go into the history of his filmography, and it's a very interesting life and filmography with pornos and exploitation films and horror films and stuff like that. And then we also have one of the greatest additions to this was an expert on Edmund O'Brien, and he goes through and he talks about Edmund O'Brien's career, about his Academy Award winning nominee. I don't know if he won, but he was nominated for sure, and all the way up until this movie, this being one of his last roles in the early 70s. And and then after that he was signed on to do Black Christmas, and he had like dementia or Alzheimer's or something like that where he couldn't remember his lines, and he was ended up shipped off to an old folks home. And all this whole story is interesting, and it just was great hearing about the actor and everything like that. And it really gave some appreciation to these old actors like that who are just like workhorses, and they just did so much dedication. And I love the release, I love the movie, and I was really impressed with it. But yeah, that's his. And I'm not being like hype this stuff up, because I'm kind of a weird person. I like regional horror, and I like kind of like the older I get, the more psychological I kind of go into, just because that's the stuff that just it pulls me in a little bit more, unless the movie I've seen like 100 million times and it's like embedded in my brain. A lot of that stuff. Like it's very hard for me to watch new films and fall in love with them like I can an old film. And I don't know if that's biases or nostalgia, but I'd never seen this movie and I really enjoyed it, and I could see myself revisiting it. That's Dream No Evil.
Daddy, please help me. Daddy, please help me.
Dream No Evil. As a child, she screamed for the father she never had. But as a lustful adult, she created the image of a father in her mind and brought it to life to avenge her sins.
No, Daddy! No, Daddy!
She has projected herself into a father image all of her life, from what I can tell.
Academy Award winner Edmund O'Brien stars in this story of murder and mayhem. Dream No Evil, a fantasy gone berserk.
Okay, the next one on the American Horror Project Volume 2 is Dark August. This is the one that I never heard of for sure. Dream No Evil, I might have seen the name and just passed it by. Like, kind of heard of it, but didn't really pay much attention to it. The name's so generic that it could be with anything. Dark August. I've never heard of this movie ever. This one's for Vermont, and this is again like a dark psychological but yet supernatural horror film. We follow the story of this kind of middle-aged man, and he obviously has a haunted past. He hit a young kid on the road and killed them by accident, and he is still in the small town that it happened in, and he keeps seeing the grandfather of the girl he did it to, and there's just something wrong with him. He's having these weird attacks, and you can realize that some occult stuff is going on, and you know who the main perpetrator probably is. So that's the story here, but this movie has like a sense of dread that is really just off-putting, and it has this weird sense of the occult as well. And when you think about it, a lot of those movies had the occult with the tarot cards, and you're just like roll your eyes, but they work here, and it's actually drawn. The performances are really good. The lead in here, he is likable, but also he's just an average guy, and he feels actually distraught. And the nightmares is something. I was watching this movie, and I was thinking, there are some things worse than death, staying alive after you've killed someone on accident seems to be one of them. And there's the real horror in that, the idea that you're so guilty for what you've done, even if it was an accident. And that stuff is just really bothersome. The camera work I remember in this one really stuck out to me. Like I said, they have a lot of like establishing shots. The other one did too, but this one has really beautiful scenery. They do that kind of stuff. You can tell these people also did long tracking shots, which I really appreciated because I know they're not particularly easy. So, especially on film. So they're following him and just a couple characters talking for a long period of time, and there'd be a fight scene involved with it, like a quick fight scene. But of course, the lead starts to figure out what's going on. He enlists some help of a cult person who is played by, I think, Kim Hunter, classic actress. I'm not too familiar with her actually. I'd probably see her and be like, okay, I've seen a bunch of these, but it's just not, she didn't register like Edmund O'Brien did right when I saw him or seeing the name, and I was like, wow. But yeah, so enlist the help of an occult person, and they kind of are trying to stop this curse. There's also this weird like ominous presence out there in the woods that's like in a cloak, and he's always trying to find them, and you don't know, and it's just like a familiar basically brought up to drive him mad and ruin his life and get revenge. But it feels like later on, like stuff like Thinner, that whole like I put a curse on you stuff. But this one feels so much more grounded than something like Thinner. And a lot of it is just like him and his relationship with his girlfriend and calling his family back home. He's just an interesting character and just a unique actor that you wouldn't see necessarily play this kind of role, but it all feels so real and grounded. It's not like your hunky typical lead. It's just an average guy. And I guess he was from a comedy background, which kind of interested me because the performances all in here are really solid, especially even if they are amateur. And the old man is really kind of a creepy presence as well. But I thought this one was really shot well, and it looked great and sounded great. And the ending is kind of weird and bizarre, and it's downbeat and just very 70s. And the special features are also pretty great on here. They interview an expert on Vermont filmmaking and horror, so he talks about all the regional horror films and stuff that were made in here, from Ghost Story to tons of stuff, which is really interesting. And this guy's an expert on, I believe, his home state and what films were made in Vermont, and I like that, how he talks about this. And another movie were made around the same time, and that one's yet to be released. So again, discovery is one of the main things that keeps a film fan going, especially a genre film fan going. It's discovery. You watch 100 to get one great one, and that ratio gets smaller and smaller. The more films you see, you watch maybe like 20 to get one great classic movie, or 30 or 40 or 50, and then I think it gets smaller and smaller as it goes on. So it's nice to see this stuff, and it's just like cracking the surface on a bunch of stuff that anybody that tells you, I've repeated myself in this video later, but anybody that tells you they've seen everything or they can see it all, they haven't seen anything, because once you crack one door open, there's a million more doors that open. So and that's what it is with this. Like, I've never even heard of this, and like I'm so interested in seeing maybe some other films like it, so I hope this horror project keeps going on. But also on the features is an interview with the director, and he kind of opens up about the ending. He's like, I don't know what it meant. And you're just like, he's an odd guy, but he's very candid, and I'm glad they interviewed him, because I'm sure he hasn't been interviewed about this kind of stuff before. There's also an interview with an actress on here, appreciation by Stephen Thrower, which was good. Stephen Thrower is one of the best, just like the other people on these releases. But this is another one that I thought was really great and entertaining and pretty different. And this is the one that I never heard of, never heard anyone bring up, didn't even know existed. But that is Dark August. Really kind of, dread-filled 70s dark psychological drama, kind of similar to the last one, but Not as much dread in the last one, just kind of sadness.
What'd he say?
So I'm all right, just a little hyper.
Tranquilizers?
Just like my dog. It's all right. I'll be right back.
I got a lot of work to do.
Excuse me, Mr. McDermott, can I talk to you a minute? Excuse me.
And so,
Excuse me. Can I talk to you a minute, Mr. McDermott? Look, all I want... Look, Mr. McDermott, all I want to do is talk to you just for a second. Will you just listen to me? Could you just listen a minute? Look, Mr. McDermott. Look, what can I say? I'm sorry. I mean, how many times do you want me to apologize about your granddaughter's death? I mean, look, I'm warning you, McDermott. What do you want me to do? I want you to leave me alone. And I'm going to tell you something else. That goes for your friend, too, hanging out at my house. Just have him stay away from me, or else you're going to fight.
Why don't you listen to him? Why don't you put your ears where your eyes are? Why don't you listen to him? Why did somebody listen to him? What am I talking to, a wall? Yeah, you're right. Are you all right? Come on.
if I got a problem, I want to hear it now if you do. Okay then, party's over. Let's go home.
And I'll go now.
Yes, everybody can go. Okay. You're all right, huh?
Yep.
Mr. DeVito, can I see you for a minute? You're causing a lot of concern for our townspeople. You're causing a lot of grief for the old man.
But what about the grief he's causing me?
Such as?
What's the point of all this?
Well, let's just take it easy and, the man's getting very old.
Yeah.
You understand?
Yeah, I understand.
I thought you would. Why don't you go on home?
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I'll see about that.
Oh boy, man. This last one on the American Horror Project is a doozy, and it's the only one I had seen before. From 1977, The Child. This is a movie, I'm going to bring it up. I have a little history of this. I've talked to, like Joe Rubin, and he'd bring this movie up to me like, this is a bizarre, weird movie. And who else? Arthur Culliper, who directed Headless, and he was in The Bad Man. I like to ask, people that I know love movies when I'm working with them or just talking to them. And I said, any movie that you think is like a cult item that no one talks about? And he said, thought about it. He's like, The Child. The Child. And I was like, okay. And that's like the second I had to watch it back in the day. So when the Blu-ray, when it was announced that it was going to be on the set, I was like, perfect movie. This movie, man, is anybody that hasn't seen it should check it out. It is so weird. It opens up. This movie is nightmare logic, nightmare fuel, inept weirdness in the very beginning. Everybody seems 80-yard, and the first 20 minutes, you're like, what is this mess of a movie? And you're like, this is just not good. This is not terrible. And then as it progresses, you're like, no, I'm in this weird kind of nightmare world where I don't know what the hell is going on. But I'll tell you what, it ends up becoming this crazy, entertaining but scary movie. I'm going to tell you, this movie is like Night of the Living Dead, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, Carrie, The Bad Seed, and Burial Ground. That's what it reminds me of. It reminds me of all these movies, but regional and cheap. And it's made by, I believe, a foreign director who came from Iran, and then another. They're both, and the producer was foreign too, but he came over very young. And they're interesting. And that's always what happens is you get these weird kind of like nightmare logic, or sometimes they're so bad they're good, but I wouldn't call that this. These movies where they are directed by somebody from a different country who's doing an endearing, earnest movie, and they're on a budget. They make these kind of unique, like like visions of horror. And that's what the child is. Like, we have this nanny who's hired to take care of this young girl in an isolated area, isolated farm, where there's a father who seems way too old to be her father, and basically another helper, maybe his son as well. I think so. So she's basically hired to take care of this child. Almost immediately you realize this child is not right. This child is visiting the cemetery at night to visit her friends. Her mother was killed under mysterious circumstances. There's very little inhabitants around the area of the farm. There's another like kind of caretaker, and then there's this weird family, this old lady who's very bizarre and over the top. They said she was a theater actor, and that kind of explains it, how she's just completely over the top. And you realize that the child in this movie is communicating with something in the graveyard, and she has some sort of weird, like, telekinesis or telepathy or something like that, and she has control over these people that she is talking to in the graveyard. It's not going to be hard to figure out what I told you, what its influences were, what they are. The climax of this movie becomes insane and terrifying, and it kind of feels it's a little slow, but once it picks up at the end, it's a creepy and dreary, the whole movie, and the atmosphere is over the top, like the woods and tons of fog and too much rain. It's almost like too much, but it's just like you can tell it's a movie, but you don't care because it's just like so forced in there and everything. But the drawings that she has showing her friends are just generally very creepy, of them eating cats. In the very beginning, they show her bring like this little kitten or cat to the graveyard, and you know what's going to happen. But yeah, it's just basically this nanny and this young man trying to survive this terrible, crazy world. It gets pretty gory at times. And they use the same gag a couple times with the eye missing. It gets bloody, it gets nuts, and there's a siege at the end in kind of this corral and barn area, which is what nightmares are made of. And it's just such a weird, crazy movie that I just can't recommend enough. You really got to see it, because if you like low-budget horror films from the 70s that are regional and weird, this is like the cream of the crop. I think it's the cream of the crop of the bunch. Maybe not the most psychologically intense movie, or one that will actually like hurt your soul like the other two may possibly, but this one is terrifying in its own weird kind of way. Like I said, it's cheesy and goofy at times. It does feel that way. But something like Burial Ground, where you're watching it and you're like, oh, this is so weird and off the wall and kind of stupid, but then there's these weird like scenes that literally feel like they're coming from a nightmare, and it's kind of terrifying and stupid at the same time. But I think the child has its great moments. I really enjoyed it. I like the looks of the creatures at the end. I would highly recommend this one. There's, again, appreciation with Stephen Thrower, and there's a commentary with the producer, director, and Stephen Thrower moderating. I don't think I had a chance to listen to that, but I did watch the interview with the director and producer, and they talk about how they got this movie made and how they met and everything like that, and they seem interesting, unique people. Like, all the filmmakers behind these movies are characters in themselves, and they're not just like, they're different, they're unique, and there's a story within them as well as within their films that, and it comes through into their films, and you just like everything coming into context with this box set makes it a real winner. So I would highly recommend the box set. I would highly recommend checking out all three of these films. I would go back and watch the other American Horror Projects if you can get your hand on it, especially The Witch Who Came from the Sea, and then Premonition, and then probably Malatestas. Although it is interesting, it is the weakest of the three, I would say, but it has probably some of the most iconic scenes at the same time. So I really like this this series, and just support it so we can get more of it. And I'll let you guys check out the trailer for The Child.
The face of an angel. The heart of a killer. The power of the devil.
I want to know who you're meeting in the cemetery.
I don't have to tell you anything.
I'm going to work for them. I'm going to take care of Rosalie Norden. The death of parents when a child is rather young, it leaves you feeling so alone.
I have friends. They do favors for me.
What kind of favors?
You'll find out.
Stay right here. I'll be right back.
All right, who's in here? Rosalie, stop it!
They're going to come and hurt you both. Hurt you bad.
The child wants to play hide and go kill.
Who's in here?
Her power is unearthly.
You go away, Rosalie! Go away and leave me alone!
Her acts monstrous. Her secret electrifying, of unspeakable evil. The Child, a terrifying thriller.
Okay, guys, I thought this was the best place to throw this in here. So, yeah, I'm going to let you guys know that there is a contest for a brand new American Horror Project set, still sealed. I know you guys seen it in the video. I showed you a little bit of it in the review. But, yeah, you can win that along with a nice little tote bag. You get a closer look at these of the American Horror Project right here. There we go. All you got to do is send an email to the Screaming Toilet at Gmail, Screaming Toilet Contest at gmail.com, and in the header put American Horror Project. This is probably going to go on for quite some time, and guaranteed to go on for after the 4th of July, because what better way to celebrate the Independence Day, 4th of July, give away American Horror Project, Volume 2, why not? I'm actually shipping this one myself this time, so for Canada, I'll ship to Canada. I don't know how the customs, but I will ship to Canada because, so America and Canada, it's open to them, so please send in your email, screamingtoiletcontest at gmail.com, for a way to enter, and a lot of the information will be below. Like I said, you're going to want to get your hands on this set. You'll probably get some advertising emails from like MVD and stuff like that, just on upcoming releases, stuff that you probably be interested in anyways, so just give you a fair warning. So if you start getting emails from that you didn't expect, that's why. But yeah, go ahead and join, and I guess I'll show you a little bit of the tote bag right here. Okay, guys, the next one is from Cult Epics, and it's another flick from Amsterdam, and this is My Nights with Susan, Sandra, Olga, and Julie. Yeah, and this one, I just watched Blue Movie, and I watched Obsessions, and Frank and Eva. Frank and Eva was the one I couldn't think of the other. So I'm kind of familiar with these Amsterdam movies. These are by all, the same, film company, and this is actually directed by, what's the guy's name? I think he did Frank and Eva. I'm going to look. I'm going to cheat. I'm sorry, guys. I can't. Pim de la Para. So, yeah. He was actually, I think, a South American guy who moved to Amsterdam and started making movies. But he gives an introduction on this one right in the beginning of the movie, and he talks a little bit about it, and he ends it in the most perfect way. He says something like, this is a small movie from a small company, and I'm a small man. And it's just really cute and kind of to introduce the film. The movie, it's not so cute. It is clever. I mean, cute kind of has a connotation that is sweet sometimes, but cute really means clever. But it is clever, but it's not sweet. This movie right here follows the story of Anton, and he goes to pick up Sandra, who's living in this kind of isolated house, kind of like in a farm area, and she's living with a bunch of young women and a man who's kind of isolated in this room. He immediately sleeps with one of the women, and he realizes that there's this highly sexual, weird kind of, I don't want to say like weird relationships between all of them. There's a character of Albert who is kind of isolated in this wall and under this red light, and he's voyeuristically watching Olga and Sandra always sleep with each other, and Sandra and Olga are always kind of seducing people and manipulating people, and they're not good people. In the very beginning of this movie, someone is murdered by the two manipulators, and they bring the body and they dump it in the water. But there's also another character called Pyatt, who is kind of isolated even from them and lives in her own little farmhouse, and she's kind of not right in the head. And she starts to take the body and take things from the crime scene, and that complicates things because obviously police start to look for this guy who's missing, and that kind of makes everything even more amplified, and the sexual weird things going on with all the characters and the interactions with them, and you kind of realize this is headed for an intense kind of thing where people are going to lose their lives and feelings are going to get hurt and lives are going to get destroyed. Anton showed up to pick up Susan, who runs this kind of house, and she was a model, and he's supposed to take her back to the city. And that kind of, like, right when he shows up, everything goes to hell. And the way that Susan and Olga carry out the murder and the way they go about things, it seems that they have done bad things before, maybe not a murder, maybe it kind of pushed to that limit. This is at times, there's not much comedy in the movie, there's a lot of drama, but the character of Pyatt is funny, but also tragic. She will come showing up wearing like items of the murdered person that starts to give hints to the other characters. And they look at her at first and she's out there in her weird kind of dress and she's really kind of like almost an imposing figure with the sunglasses, and it's like kind of comedic at times, but then also a little haunting because they know where they got the freaking glasses. And you're like, ooh, this is gonna go somewhere very weird. But I ended up really enjoying this one. It's highly sexualized. There's a lot of nudity. There's, you know, it's about sex. A lot of the movie is about sex and relationships and things like that. And it's just weird that the two girls are so like, they're basically villains of the movie, and what happens to them is just dessert. So I really enjoyed seeing that. But it's a movie about relationships and about sex and about other things and, you know, boredom, I guess, in some people, and isolation. It's just an interesting movie to watch, and it's really driven by its characters. And none of them are particularly the most likable people, but they are interesting in a certain case. And the only character I really like 100% sympathized with was Julie. And I felt bad for her in general because she seems to be the only one who actually is a great person all around, or at least decent. But it's just weird to have the guy, it has a lot of these like taboos, like voyeurism and lesbianism and stuff, especially probably for the time of the early 70s in Amsterdam. It's just a movie that doesn't really hold back. It shows everything, full frontal male nudity, female nudity, it's all there. And the location they shoot it in, this kind of isolated place, is really cool as well, especially where they expect the Anton guy to sleep. He has to climb up this ladder, and he's all the way up in the kind of high barn area, and it's just, I liked seeing all that stuff too. There's a couple features on here. There's 3 shorts of the movie. There's from the director and the filmmakers that did this company and stuff like that. And they seem semi-interesting. They didn't really catch my attention like this movie did. I think this and Frank and Eva were probably my favorites of the 4 that were I reviewed for them. I thought this one probably was the strongest. I thought it was probably the most well put together, and it's kind of a shame because they made like one more movie after this, and then their company went bankrupt. But I think this one's definitely worth checking out, and especially for people that are like, you know, Blue movie is more like a sexualized drama. This one is more of like a thriller, kind of horror movie, but has like the sex in it here as well. And you know, this is the kind of stuff that would only get made in the 70s or by independent filmmakers nowadays. So it's just interesting. It's well acted. All the characters are interesting. Their interactions are interesting. You don't really know exactly what's going to happen. And by the end of it, you're very satisfied. It looks great. It sounds great. I'm going to have to edit the trailer a little bit to cut out some highly sexually explicit stuff so I don't get in trouble. I'll probably just blank that scene out so you can hear it. But still, I would recommend checking this one out. This is my favorite release that Cult Epics put out in a while. I think it's a great movie. I think it's cool stuff. And, you know, it will keep you very entertained throughout the whole movie.
Susan? Susan? Susan?
Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Piet en Sandra. Mijn nachten, nachten, nachten. Mijn nachten met Susan, Susan, Susan. Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Olga, Olga. Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Albert, Albert. Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Julie, Julie. Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Piet. Piet, Piet. Mijn nachten met Susan, Olga, Albert, Julie, Piet en Sandra. Sandra, Sandra. Mijn nachten met Pim en Wim, Pim en Wim, Pim en Wim. Een sex and psycho, suspense, mystery thriller.
Okay, guys, the next one here is, it's going to be a quickie because this is the first one I watched for the release for the week, and it is Victor Crowley, the fourth in the Hatchet series. I have like a love-hate relationship with Adam Green. Like, I really love the first Hatchet. I don't care for the second Hatchet. I enjoy the third Hatchet, so I was putting off on watching the fourth one. I like digging the Marrow. I was on and off with his podcast. So, I put in Victor Crowley. I really wasn't expecting much. I had heard some mixed things about it, and I had heard that this was the beginning of another trilogy. So I'm like, okay, well, I don't know what this is going to be. So right when it opens, I'm like, this is very Adam Green. This is very Adam Green making fun of, the film industry and independent film industry and everything in general and fans and agents and things like that. And I was like, you know what? This is already pretty funny. And Adam, he wrote what he knew. And it shows. It's not like he's reaching and doing these things that he doesn't know. It's almost like he was afraid to slip back into that comfort zone. Because I know he's made some dramas and dark, like horror stuff, like Frozen and stuff, and they seem to be well received. So I know he's tired of doing the same old thing with these Hatchet movies. But at the same time, like, it seemed like instead of, I knew it felt like he didn't want to do one, but he embraced it, and he made a really funny, entertaining movie. It's low budget. It looks a little cheaper than the other ones, but I never had a problem with cheapness. They do with what they can. The special effects are entertaining, and everybody's probably thinking, how the hell are they going to bring Victor Crowley back? Well, they're probably thinking, well, I already watched this movie 6 months ago, a year ago, buddy. Why are you talking about it? Because I just saw it, okay? But regardless, the way they bring Victor Crowley back, I was kind of happy with. I thought he looked a little different and unique. The plot of this one follows the actor who's in all the other ones and Lone Survivor from Hatchet 3, and he's kind of going around on tour and basically making a living off his survival story that is completely made up of bullshit. His agent is played by Felissa Rose. She's hilarious in it. She's always falling asleep, always popping drugs, always being really loud and obnoxious and not listening to anything. So she's always booking him at places that are miserable, which plays into a couple of the gags in the movie about signing people's genitalia. You guys will know the gag if you see the unrated version. So there's that going on, and he is offered a ridiculous amount of money to go back to the Victor Crowley swamp and shoot a special there. At first, he doesn't want to go, but of course he agrees to go. His ex-wife is doing the whole thing. She's like the host of the show. They don't like each other. So they end up going all on this plane with the film crew. And of course, something happens where the plane crashes dead in the swamp. Meanwhile, these independent filmmakers are trying to make a Victor Crowley movie, hence making money off all these other people, this real true crime stuff, which kind of Adam Green's making a statement of, people making money off the misery of others. He's making a huge statement on that, and making fun of it, and making fun of people that do it. And I can appreciate that, because I wasn't the biggest fans of stuff like Lords of Chaos or the new Ted Bundy movie. Not that I think they're poorly made movies or anything. It's just sometimes that stuff rubs me the wrong way. It's a really delicate thing to do. It's really hard to do. So he kind of pokes fun at that kind of stuff, which I thought was fun. I appreciate that. So, and there's jokes in here, of course, and gore of everything. So they're stranded in this plane. It turns into a siege movie where the characters are kind of, trying to survive against Victor Crowley. Dave Sheridan's in this movie, and he steals the damn show. That is Officer Doofy from Scary Movie. He also pops up in Devil's Rejects. This guy, watching him, every time I see him, he always is good. He's entertaining, vastly underrated, especially as Doofy. And this movie, he is very charming, and he plays a douchebag at first, but he becomes the most endearing, lovable character throughout the whole movie. When he's first introduced, he's doing these really bad impressions, probably stuff like I do as jokes. But he comes out doing a John Wayne. He's like, "How you doing there, Pilgrim?" And then he goes in, "You looking at me?" And it just does like an off like Robert De Niro, and he's like, "You're talking to me." He's like, "You looking at me?" And it's like, it's just great and very funny. And the movie is a little self-indulgent because it's doing a lot of stuff that Adam Green had done, but it's also doing fan service to the fans at the same time, which is almost the same thing in kind of these movies, to be honest. So We also have Tiffany Shepis popping up in here and some other familiar cameos, Adam Green and Joe Lynch. So yeah, of course. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really funny. I thought Kane Hodder was pretty intense in it. I would recommend checking it out for sure. I feel bad now because I used to listen to Adam Green's podcast and Joe Lynch's podcast all the time, but I just got burnt out on it because a lot of the same stories are repeated. Adam Green tells a lot of the same stories, and you're like, man, I feel like this is, too self-indulgent. But at the same time, like, I'll see him do something like this and see him in the special features and be like, he generally is a very sweet, nice guy at the same time. And this movie is really fun, and I'm looking forward to Victor Crowley too. So I liked it. I would recommend it. I think it's fun. It's not for everybody, but this one I actually enjoyed. And I usually, I was really I didn't expect much, to be honest. I had heard some good things, heard some bad things, and I didn't know what to expect, but I really enjoyed it.
Oh! Sue, get back to the boat. Run back to the boat right now, Sue! What? What?
We're about to meet the only guy to ever see Victor Crowley and live to tell about it.
They take us and a small camera crew and a host, and they fly us in the private network jet.
Okay, I've told you 1,000 times, I'm never going back to that swamp.
They offered $600,000.
Apologies. We had a minor issue with our right engine.
Would you like Xanax, Ambien, Valium, Oxy? I've got heavier stuff if you want.
Hey, there's people out there, thank God!
Your plane has crashed. We're gonna get you all help. The thing in the woods is death itself, and it's coming for all of us.
Look, see? I don't even think it's a motion sensor. I think it's on a timer.
He's coming back! Yes!
Austin's dead.
Dude, I'm right here.
Austin's alive.
Go to hell, you ugly bastard!
We are so dead.
Hammer time!
For all who are willing to pay the price, we invite you to go through the mirror of life.
All right, guys, it's hammer time. Do it again. Third time. It's not a hammer. Did you got it out of your system?
No.
All right.
It'll happen.
It'll happen sporadically. Okay, we're here to do Hammer Time, I think, week 6. We got the last double feature for you. Again, 2 Terrence Fisher movies. This guy directed everything for Hammer for years, it feels like. At least for a 3-4 year period. And the first one has Christopher Lee, and the second one has Peter Cushing. So, yes. Let's start with the first one, The Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll. This is it's on a Mill Creek double feature. 1959. I actually am a big fan of the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde story. I think it's Robert Louis Stevens, actually. I remember the name this time off the top of my head. I think that's who wrote the original story. I like the story. I like the duality and the idea of having like this, what they call it, an id or ego, whatever the goddamn thing is. I always confuse the super id and the ego mixed up which one's which. But obviously, like 2 identities, yin and yang, inside of a body. It's a typical Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde story. We have this older scientist who kind of runs away into work, very science horror oriented, and he's always obsessed with his work, and he's trying to create a serum. So what's he trying to actually cure at this point? Age?
No. What?
Anger or violence or something like that.
Yeah,
He wants to isolate the violence, so.
Yeah, because he's in the beginning. It opens up. He's like at some like kids are visiting him, and I guess we're all mute.
Yeah.
And like one of the kids is like mean to the other for like no real apparent reason.
And he wants to
and
isolate
he's like,
the anger.
Even without woods, these animals find ways to harm themselves or something like that.
Yeah. That's kind of his idea, and he's always like going too far, obviously, like all these scientists do. So he's obviously working on the serum. It reminds me of obviously the man who could cheat death, very much so, because that was kind of a Dr. Jekyll story.
Yeah.
So the actor, he obviously gets to play two roles here, but here's the difference, I think. In this one, Dr. Jekyll has like it seems like seemingly younger wife who is not thrilled with him constantly staying in. She needs to be kind of entertained, and she likes to go out. That's where Christopher Lee, Dr. Jekyll's best friend, enters, and he's kind of exploiting his kindness and getting money. They both are, Jekyll's wife and him, and they're taking advantage of him, and then they'll go out and they're having a love affair.
Right. Yeah. He's kind of like a playboy kind of deal, street guy.
And this is probably one of the most interesting roles I've ever seen Lee play.
Yeah, I would agree, actually.
He's really great in this, and he's sleazy and highfalutin. I don't know what he is. He's a drunk, but he's really witty, and he's also just a dick. So basically, Dr. Jekyll takes a serum. He comes out as Mr. Hyde Young, and he gets involved with, is it Henry? Who's Henry? I think that's Christopher Lee's character, as Mr. Hyde as well. So he gets to know his wife and Christopher Lee as Mr. Hyde.
Right. Yes, I wouldn't call this a typical Jekyll and Hyde story. This is like, it's like everybody in this movie lives like a double life. So
yeah.
You have Lee, who is he's very like show-offy with his money, but he doesn't have money.
He acts like he has money. He's a high roller, but he's broke.
Yeah. You have the wife, obviously,
who's cheating on Dr. Jekyll.
Right, and then you have Dr. Jekyll, who is a shut-in, but ideally, like, he does this, like, not so he could catch his wife having an affair because he doesn't know, but so he can actually go out with his wife. Like, he feels kind of bad that he ignores her, so he's like, well, I'm just going to be this new person.
That's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
And the performance by the guy who plays Dr. Jekyll, I actually don't know the actor, and if I have seen him, he didn't ring a bell. When he's Dr. Jekyll, he has like a real baritone voice. Right. And then when he turns to Mr. Hyde, he's like this crazy, almost manic younger looking person. And in the book, it was like Dr. Jekyll was like an older man who was sophisticated, intelligent, kind. And when he took the serum, he became like a younger, stronger, hairier, more violent, primitive creature.
Right.
And I don't know when Dr. Jekyll became this handsome person. I mean, Mr. Hyde did when he turned, but I don't ever remember that. Is this when it started? I don't think the Lon Chaney Sr. one. I think he was a monster when he turned.
Well, I have only ever seen a Jekyll Hyde story where Hyde is a monster. I don't think I've ever seen like a handsome...
Well, Nutty Professor's that story.
Oh, yeah, I guess Nutty Professor is.
Dr. Heckle, Mr. Hype with Oliver Reed is that story.
Is that Hammer 2? Or
no, that's some later spoof.
What's,
that's in the 80s. Or maybe early 80s, late 70s.
Isn't there like a Dr. Jekyll Sister Hyde?
Yeah, that is Hammer coming up, and that's completely different. That's definitely playing into more sexual stuff, and which Hammer becomes into more as they progress.
Yeah.
But this one, I thought it started out tremendous. I was really excited with Christopher Lee, and this is the first. It's a Hammer first, which I'm very excited for. The first of 5, I believe, Hammer horror-oriented movies that Oliver Reed appears in.
Right, he does appear.
And he's very young, and he's kind of like a pimp almost. And it was really great seeing him, and he got to share a scene with Christopher Lee, which was probably the best part of the whole movie, for me at least.
Or you know who also makes an appearance? Dr. Mortimer from that show with the doctor in it.
It wasn't Dr. It wasn't Dr. Mortimer. It was the drunken guy from the previous movie who came in from the Hounds of Baskerville. Was he a doctor? And he drank all their booze and left.
He's in the next one.
He's in the other one.
Yeah, he's in.
Mortimer does appear in this.
Mortimer,
He does. Dr. Mortimer appears at the very end as a police detective.
Yes.
He's from Baskerville and
What else was
The Mummy?
Was it The Mummy?
I think he is. He's in one of them. He's a cop in one, and he's a doctor in the other. He's a cop in the other one.
He's a cop in this one.
Oh, he's the man who could cheat death. He pops up in that one as a cop at the very end.
You're
yes.
right. Mm-hmm.
So this one, he's a cop too, isn't he?
Yeah, he's an inspector. Yeah.
This is his last appearance in Hammer Horror, I believe. But he doesn't get much to do.
No,
in this
he
one.
doesn't.
He shines in Baskerville.
Yeah, that Baskerville and even the man who cheats death. I think he's really good. And I don't. There's something about the way he looks. He has like a good screen presence. Have you shown him in any of the clips yet?
No. I'm sure he's popped up in the trailers occasionally.
Okay.
I mean, I'm sure a lot of these people know who he is.
Yeah, no, he's a lot of fun, and so I got excited every time I got to see him.
I liked him, but he didn't stand out in this movie. Lee stands out. He does tremendous. I did, and there's something about Hyde too. Like once he gets something, after he has it, he doesn't really care. He has no conscience.
No, he doesn't.
And I'm not even really sure how this one exactly ends. I'm not ringing a bell. If it's got to be terrible for Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde. That's how it always typically ends.
Do we want to talk about the ending?
I think we should skip spoiling the ending completely.
Okay. Well, essentially, once he realized, he
can't fight it, and it starts to take him over, like all the other stories.
Hyde tries. He ends up befriending Christopher Lee, to kind of get to he wants Lee to leave his wife alone so he can be with his wife.
Yes.
So he tries to essentially bribe him. He takes on Lee's debt.
Yeah.
And then it's okay, well, I took on all your debt.
No.
Leave
your girlfriend alone, your mistress.
Your mistress.
That's going on there. And some of the deaths that he has one was actually laugh out loud funny. What happens to one of the I don't spoil it, but yeah.
But when that doesn't work, then he does the thing with the wife. He goes on to the wife, and the wife is I can't, I love, and it's not her husband.
Yeah, I love Henry. Yeah. I think it's Henry, right? No, Henry, I think is in Baskerville. I think
can't remember.
These are starting to mix together, which I don't know if it says anything about our poor brain, our poor reviewing skills, or just that these movies are very similar, and they all have very similar themes and everything like that. I thought this one started off with a lot of promise, and I think that it got a little weaker towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't a big fan of it, but I appreciate it. I think Lee does an amazing job.
Nice to see Oliver Reed, too.
Nice to see Oliver Reed. I thought the wife did really good, too. She wasn't the same lady from The Mummy, was she?
I don't think so. I can't really recall her in this one very well. I said, Lee stood out the most, and Reed, because it's a favorite actor of mine.
Right. And for The Mummy, I think, was the lady in The Man Who Cheated Death. I think that was the same actress.
Possibly.
So I don't know if we've seen this woman yet.
I'm not sure. I can't recall. Like I said, literally, when I try to think, it's completely a blank right now.
Right, yeah.
Like I said, it gets hard to keep up with everything you watch in a week. Sometimes you watch 10 titles in a week. But I know that, unfortunately, Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll is not in the Tear on Tape book, but it is in Creature Features. So
you do the honors.
No, sir.
You already found it out. I can't
It's the second one. Yeah, that's a beer stoop receipt. How many stars out of 5?
What's this called?
Two Faces of Dr. Jekyll.
Oh, okay. 1961. We're already in the 60s. Okay, it gives you 3 out of 5?
Yeah.
4, 5. Okay. You get 2001 Space Odyssey 5. All right. 3 stars out of 5. Hammer pulls a switch on the overworked Robert Louis Stevenson split personality plot. Instead of a good-looking Doc turning into an ugly brute, a not-so-handsome chap transmutes into a handsome playboy who falls for London's can girls. Directed by Terence Fisher from a Wolf Mankiewicz script. Wolf Mankiewicz. Paul Massey, Don Adams, Christopher Lee, Oliver Reed. Strictly a Game of Hide and Seek. Produced by... This is terribly written. Produced by Michael something and Anthony something.
It doesn't matter who produced it. I gave it about 3, too.
I'll probably give it 2 out of 5.
Yeah.
2 out of 5.
What?
Yeah, it just...
That's brutal.
It didn't catch me.
I mean, I have no problems with it. That's why I'm going with a 3 out of 5. I found it was decent and a little better than average. I thought that the sets were nice. I thought the acting was good, and I love seeing Lee. I'm not hard to please, though. You know that.
I'm hard to please. That's not true. I'm very easily pleased.
Let's roll the trailer on that one.
Okay.
If you cannot bear to see a man change before your eyes, Then shut them for just a few seconds, if you can. And listen for the shuddering sounds to end. They mark the evil transformation of Henry Jekyll to his monstrous other self, the cruel, depraved Edward Hyde.
For God's sake, man, don't kill him.
Let me alone, Jekyll. Let me alone.
Here is the century-old horror classic, filmed as it has never been before, with a cast that takes the living shape of the characters that have enthralled billions of readers all over the world. This is Dr. Jekyll, one man with two faces and a mind split in two.
Will we ever know who we really are? Who are you, Kitty? Who are you?
Dawn Adams as his shameless wife, unaware that her husband was two men, both of them watching her jealously.
I don't deserve you, Kitty.
You don't. But I deserve you. I deserve nothing better than you.
Christopher Lee as the lover who shared her deception and her danger. Here is the cold face of hate and the hot face of passion. And the face of torment.
Where's Henry?
Believe me, your husband is here.
All right, this next one is Brides of Dracula, the second in the Hammer Dracula series.
That was a punch.
Okay. Probably one of the punches that Peter Cushing throws in this movie. A little bit stronger than his, though. But regardless, Christopher Lee does not reprise his role as Count Dracula, but Matt Cushing comes back as Abraham Van Helsing. And this one, I think, is actually a vast improvement of the original Dracula. And I know a lot of people actually feel that way about this one. I'd seen it years ago, and I was like, I remember it being okay, about as good as the original. I meant Horror Dracula. And then rewatching it, I was like, no, this is better. It's bigger. It just looks way better. It's more well-acted. It's more like structured, and it just has its own unique plot as well. Now, this doesn't follow the story of Dracula, the Brides of Dracula. It's kind of... It has a really nice setup and actually a little bit unique if you want to do it.
Yeah, the way that this opens, I mean, it introduces, a character, like a whole ensemble cast, really.
Yeah.
Just, it's probably like at the 30-minute mark. Do we get
Cushing?
Do we get Cushing in it? Like,
yeah.
So it's a girl who's en route to a university to go teach. And she stays the night with this, is she a baroness?
Well, she's on her way to it, and like her guy driving a stagecoach leaves her because he's paid off because there's a castle in the nearby distance, and all the villagers are super superstitious. Very similar to the Hammer Universal style, where everybody's superstitious. They believe in these old relics and these old tales because obviously there's vampirism happening in this village.
Right.
So this baroness comes down, and at first the townskeepers are telling her, the innkeepers are telling her, we don't have any rooms. But when this baroness comes, they said we actually do have rooms because they're worried about what's going to happen to her.
Right. They know the baroness is up to something.
She's up to something. I love the idea that it feels like a Euro horror to the max, like where it's like, I'm somebody foreign coming to this country and I got to get to my school. It's like a Dario Argento plot,
right?
You know what I mean, or something like that. So almost immediately she's like taken into this castle, and it's really strange. And this baroness is really weird, and there's a maid who's not right, and she spots somebody in this isolated part of the castle that she can't get to, and she figures out it's the baroness's son. But obviously, you guys know there's something wrong with the baroness's son. Right. She lets him loose and brings on a plague on the town, and the baroness's son is a vampire, creating the Brides of Dracula.
Right. The lady who plays the baroness. I loved her. I think that she, I have this thing for just like really gaudy old women. I don't know why.
I think they're like rich and high class.
Yeah, like they just make me happy, and like like this. I've never seen her before. She looked kind of like B. Arthur.
She looked like B. Arthur meets like Cindy Sylvia from Beetlejuice.
Yeah, and she just just the way that her acting in this was just like phenomenal, and like the small extra stuff she did, like you pointed out, like she was hiding her mouth after
she's so vain.
scene.
What happens to her? Yeah, and when Cushing has meets her and interacts with her, that's a whole great scene. And Cushing actually, like, he's pretty much developed as Van Helsing, and he's just like a super likable character. There's a great scene where he has to pair up. He's like a theology doctor and a doctor of all sorts of studies. He's not actually he's kind of a medical doctor, but not really.
He's a medical doctor for the time.
Yeah, but he pairs up with this medical doctor who's just like a charlatan. And he's like always in it for the money, and he's just really weird.
Well, he's the drunk.
He's the drunk.
He's in both he's the bishop or the priest in the Hounds of Baskerville. He was in another one too.
And one of the Frankensteins, I think, being drunk all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, this guy's really funny, and he steals the show. His interactions with everybody are he's comic relief, but he's also has some good interactions with Cushing as well. There's like a scene where he's always constantly taking all these barbiturates and like alcohol, and he's like trying to make himself healthy, and that it's just like super ironic because he's obviously not doing anything healthy, but he's telling everyone else how to be healthy.
Yeah, he's like listing out the symptoms of one of the sick people, and he's like, and so he takes a thing, and he lists off one of the symptoms they had, so he takes another medicine. It's like, what are you doing?
There's a really funny scene. We're telling all about this character where he like does this whole mixture at the end, and then like puts his head over it, the bowl, to like huff it. So, and he tells the innkeeper not to let him loose no matter what he says, and he literally has a freak out where he's like, oh God, I'm dying. And she lets him out, and he's like, I told you not to let me out. But that's really great. But this one has some good atmosphere, better than the first one, I think. And I think that the look of the Brides of Dracula is unique, especially the one, like it's the whole like attacking of the school. Like I can't think of an earlier movie. I know there is probably a bunch where the monsters actually are attacking the school. It feels very, very Euro horror.
Yes. I think the maid.
Oh, she was great. She was the Renfield type character.
Good. Yeah, she was the Renfield type. She was
they're familiar, the human that takes care of the vampires when they slumber.
And she really like made me think like maybe Andy Serkis got his inspiration.
Really? I don't know about that. I don't know.
I don't know, but there was just like the whole like near sides of her personality, and then like her like writhing on the ground.
When she goes nuts, she does pretty good. Like she does like a 180. She's like sitting there digging up graves, trying to coerce the vampires to wake up early.
It's fucking great, or freaking great, yeah.
And Cushing steals the show. The guy who plays the main vampire is really good in this one too. He's solid, creepy. Baroness is good. Lots of good characters.
Even the I don't want to call her the main character because she's not, but the teacher, the one that they open up with.
Oh yeah, the student teacher.
Yeah,
she's a really interesting character too, and I actually like her. And obviously, there's some sort of love relationship with the vampire and her. I like the people that run the school.
Yeah,
the one guy's really great, especially that he's always like he like seems genuine. He can be an asshole, but he's a real human. Like a realistic asshole that's not a horrible person. It's nice to see that in a movie.
Yeah.
So I think it's great. Actually, I think it's one of the better ones for sure.
I think this is one of the better ones that we've seen.
It's the first time I sense lesbianism in a Hammer movie.
Yeah, it's not outright, but it is
because the one vampire says, "Well, we can come and I can." Like you can be with me or something weird like that when she's trying to attack the girl.
Well, I mean, it's not like they're like scissoring on the screen.
It's not like a John Rowland movie or something, or like a Just Franco movie where they're just like But it does get like that later on.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, like Dr. Jekyll's Sister Hyde has that whole weird duality with the sexes changing and like tons of like sexuality and the weird twins and vampire circus and the lesbianism and stuff. I remember one of the actors said, "Oh, I didn't notice any lesbianism in the movie she was in." It's like, what? Well, okay. I maybe not on set, but yeah, this one is definitely an improvement. I watched the Universal disc, and I guess it's in the wrong. Pretty much that entire set is in the wrong aspect ratio, from my understanding. I didn't notice. I thought it looked way better than a lot of the other ones we watched in HD.
Yeah, this one was really clear, like
and really crisp. And
it didn't have any of that fuzzy stuff.
And it didn't look like they
deleted all the noise or anything like that of the grain.
Right.
Then, yeah, it looked really good. I was really happy with how this one looks.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the whole carriage rides through the woods is just so hammer, you know.
Yeah, and this one wasn't slow moving, I feel like.
I feel like this one was fast paced.
It was very, like, this one is very set piecey. Like, this is the woods scene. This is the castle scene, the school scene.
And they're using all the same sets, too. Like, this is the
they're
barkeep
using all-
scene.
Yeah, but like, every scene is, like self-contained. You could watch any one of these and be like just one scene and be satisfied with. It's not like some of the other ones where they just take forever to get going, or we end up going nowhere. This one I thought was just, you know, just kept moving along, and I thought was really good.
I think I'm coming in at a 8 out of 10.
I'd say a solid 4 out of 5, 4.5 out of 5.
You give it a 9 out of 10? 8.5 out of 10.
8.5 out of 10.
Seems more reasonable.
A 4 1/4.
4
out of 5.
All right.
Yeah.
I guess I'll go first then. The Tier on Tour book.
Oh. How come you read the other one? I can't ever read that one.
You want to switch this time?
Yeah, I want to switch. I don't like the font of this book.
Okay, let's switch. Let me embarrass myself on this one. You start then. Tier on Tour. That's out of 4 stars. You're reading Tier on Tour?
Well, what's this movie called? Terror on Tour?
No, that's the book. You're reading Brides of Dracula.
Brides of Dracula.
I got it right there. Why are you wasting time?
I'm looking. Look, they show a picture from
Come on, just read it.
He gives it 3 out of 4.
3.5.
3. Alright, that's a 3.
Oh, is it?
Oh, does a not filled in star mean
a half?
Oh, 3.5. Okay.
Yeah.
1960, 85 minutes. List of cast. Fisher's beautifully mounted sequel to Horror of Dracula, but without Dracula, details the further exploits of the Count's destroyer, Dr. Van Helsing. Here he battles the foppish Baron Meinster, who's rampaging through a girls' school after being innocently released from his silver chains by a young French teacher visiting his mother's chateau. A sumptuous production rich in color and detail, this has top-flight acting from a supercast and boldly touches on elements of incest, lesbianism, homosexuality, and other
Therefore, after or something?
No, theretofore. Unexplored sexual aspects of the vampire condition.
He's right. Like, it's funny, it's like everything we say, then they just say it. Like, I skimmed that one before, but that's exactly like a lot of the stuff they think. It's just like, you can only say so much.
That's because we're geniuses.
It's because there's just so much to say about, like, stop. All right. The Creature Features book. It's 3 out of 5. After Horror of Dracula, Christopher Lee refused to play the Cape Count for a few years, so David Peel assumed the role. Peter Cushing returns as Dr. Von Helsing, the exorcist of Transylvania. This excellent Hammer film features silver chains, holy water, and a strangely formed cross, which repels the handsome Peel. Terence Fisher directed using heavy Freudian symbolism. Anthony Hines, producer. Jimmy Sangster co-wrote. It's weird because, like, the Freudian symbolism is where the split is. So it's, like, right on the... Yeah, I mean, Freudian's there, but then it's symbol, so I'm like, oh, no, what's going on? Yeah, but 3 out of 5, I think that's a little less on there. I think that 3.5 out of 4 is probably where I'm at, somewhere like there. But I said, like, 8 out of 10.
Yeah.
That's good. I think it's probably one of the better ones so far. It would rank in the top tier.
I put it in the top 5 so far.
Quatermass 2, Brides of Dracula, and The Hounds.
The Hounds. I also liked the man who thought he could cheat death.
Do you like that one? I probably would put Curse of Frankenstein in there over that.
Yeah.
No? What?
That's okay.
All right. I guess we're good on the Hammer. And next week, I think, is Curse of the Werewolf with Oliver Reed. I think that's next week, isn't it?
Yeah, so Oliver Reed is
coming back.
week?
I think so.
And
we
we're
only got
down to one.
Yes, thank God. Not that these are bad, it's just that it's a lot to watch at
It
this
is.
point, especially with the because we got to watch these together. And it's
Right.
also hard with the pick of movies and the Patreon and everything's just like accumulating big time. But I guess we're going to roll that beautiful Hammer trailer.
Okay, guys, I hope you enjoyed those segments because I'm sure they're super long. At least the hammer one came right there. Maybe that we'll do the Medals of Thrall at the very end. But now I'm going to hop into the pick a movie here, and this is by Kentuckitator or something. I can't think. He always comments. Funny guy. He's got the picture of Ralph Waite, or Ralph White, however he says his last name, as his a YouTube thing. But we got Man in the Wilderness. This one is made in 1971. It's directed by Richard Savarian, or Savarian. I never say his name right. He did Vanishing Point. He pops up in the Songwriter movie and stuff like Bound. Good actor, good director. This stars Richard Harris and John Huston, two acting legends, and it's based off the same source material or the same true story that The Revenant was based on. I like The Revenant. I thought it was pretty good. This one is the same story. Like I said, Richard Harris is part of this group. They're basically collecting, pelts, and John Huston is bringing this boat with him, and they have to carry the boat through the wilderness. It's a really harsh, rough terrain, of course. It's the frontier. It's one of the most undiscovered places on the planet at the time. So Richard Harris is attacked by a bear. He's fatally injured, is what they think, and of course they have the same storyline as The Revenant. They leave two people behind to take care of him. His son is not included in this, like the Revenant version. So they leave two guys, a young guy and an older guy, to take care of him and, basically bury him when he dies. And say some last words over him. And John Huston says, kill him if you have to or whatever. And they leave, and the other ones go forward. And, of course, these two guys end up, and kind of like Richard Harris is pulling through, and you see flashes of his early childhood when he was in kind of like an orphanage. So he's a very hardened, kind of strange, unique, deep individual. And what happens is he's left there, and they leave him because they think Native Americans are going to attack, and he survives, and he pulls through, and it's basically his struggle to survival with flashes of his past life and his family, and he's trying to get back to them, and he just seems like he had a very tragic, sad life, and he has a lot of regrets where he should have been there. You can think that somebody he lost somebody more recent, and he was, a hardened sailor, and that plays into John Huston's character, who's his captain, who is also a hardened sailor, and they kind of, I guess, are done with the sailing game, and this is his last boat from his command, and that stands, so he's really attached to this boat. So they have to drag this boat through the wilderness because the water has dried up because they waited too long, and the winter's setting in, and there's Native Americans ready to attack them for the pelts that they felt that are stolen. So that kind of plays into it, and there's interactions with the Native American characters and Richard Harris, always so briefly, where the Native American character kind of understands who Richard Harris is and what happened to him to a certain extent, and in a way respects him. And that's kind of the setup and the story of this movie. But there's some crazy things like where these two wolves are feeding on this buffalo, and he comes in and he has to fight the wolves off to get a piece of meat. And they never underestimate the will for a man to survive, or the will for a man to get revenge. That's kind of what's going on here. But it cuts in between John Huston and the other men, who start to look at Richard Harris's character, or Zach Bass, as this almost supernatural entity that they left in the woods, and John Huston, in a great performance, by the way, where he has this history with his character, and that's kind of divulged, and he starts talking about Zach Bass was the only man that, and it's just like, and it's really interesting stuff, and you start to learn a lot about the main character through how John Huston sees him and views him, and he's thinking about him as a specter coming for him through the woods. Entertaining. I thought it was well shot. I mean, it feels like it's shot right in the location. It feels like a hard shoot. Acting is good. All the stuff looks great. Everybody's dressed, I think, properly, even though I'm not an expert on that subject. And I like how it ends. It doesn't end exactly how you would want it to end, but it feels right how Richard Harris's character is. I guess through his journey, he discovered more about himself and decided to, some things are more important than other things, and this maybe is not important at this time. But there's a really good moment where you see him killing like a cougar and all these other animals to survive and eat. And he had a horrible injury, of course. He had a broken leg, and he was all scratched up and attacked by this bear. And he comes across this hurt rabbit, and you're like, oh, he's just easy pickings, he'll eat the rabbit. No, but he takes this rabbit, and he makes a little leg splint, and he starts to take care of it and like become attached to the rabbit. And it's like, I guess, a change of character, or maybe some sympathy, because he was so hurt, and he's just like, maybe if somebody would have helped me, it would have been better. I had a better chance of survival. But he takes pity on this rabbit. But anyways, I enjoyed it. I thought it was a well-made movie. I thought it was well shot. Richard Harris, classic actor, and I love them talking about how they fought an evil whale, which reminds me of Orca. And I believe John Huston wasn't John Huston in a Moby Dick movie. Don't get me wrong. I want to say he was, but John Huston's an actor / director that I want to be more familiar with. I have some of his movies. I've seen him pop up in some movies like Breakout and stuff like that, and this, of course, and he's tremendous, and he's always a presence, tentacles, but I believe he was involved with the Moby Dick movie. I know I sound like a novice idiot here, but I'm sorry. And I know that Richard Harris he was in Orca. I'm more comfortable and more knowing of the 70s and 80s cinema, so it's nice to see him talk about a great evil whale, because they both kind of, even though an orca's not technically a whale, but yeah, they call it a killer whale. I know it's a porpoise. Okay, you get the point. But regardless, entertaining movie, great stuff. Really liked it. Man in the Wilderness. I like these kind of frontier or Western movies. I wouldn't call it a Western. And frontier movies and Western movies, they're kind of the same, but they're different at the same time. Yeah, good stuff.
Richard Harris is the man in the wilderness. Here, somewhere north and west of the headwaters of the Missouri River, a scout from the Henry expedition was attacked by a bear.
Captain Henry!
After the bear, no one expected Zach Bass could stay alive more than a day.
I want 2 men to stay behind and bury him.
Dig his grave.
Captain Henry wanted to bury him and forget him. But Zachary Bass would not stay buried. And he would not let them forget.
What the hell's so special about Zach Bass? Why can't you let go of him?
Zach was a stowaway. He run off from an orphanage and swam out to my ship in Boston Harbor. I liked his unfearing look and kept him on. Drew a circle like around himself. Nobody dared enter it.
You do think he's alive, don't you, Captain?
Yes, Fogarty, he's alive. I've known it all along. Kill him.
Cool.
Ostepy. Nie. Wachiszale. Teo.
Keep away, Zach Bass.
Is it Bass? Well, is it Bass?
You go back to hell where you belong.
Okay, let's get into the questions. What do we have here? I'm looking at this. Yep, that's 44 minutes. Nick Mua, do you enjoy film noir? If so, could you list your top 3? I am I'm really a novice on film noir, and I've gotten some to review, and I've enjoyed all of them. So I don't want to give a list of film noir because I don't feel comfortable giving a list, because I don't feel like I could give you a real list that's worth it. What else do we have? What's your favorite It's So Bad Good flick? Tons and tons of movies like that. But Maximum Overdrive comes to mind. I always love that one. That's good stuff. How do you feel about Blumhouse Productions? Are there some rare gems among the slew of horror films, or is it all just shellac? You know what? I haven't watched as many Blumhouse movies as I should have, but I didn't even think their Halloween was bad. So I don't think it's not filled with schlock, to be honest. I think that there's actually some good stuff in there, to be honest. Extra the Mutilator. With all you showed here, this might come as a bizarre question, but those Disney exclusive blues, are they actual factory press discs? I assume they are because Disney, but since you showed them, I figured I'd ask. Been curious. They have a few I'd like to get myself. Thanks. Keep up the great work. You know what? Let's open one and check it out together. I think I'm going to go with this one, if I can get it open. You know, it's going to be one of these deals where, like, it takes me 35 minutes to open, and maybe I'll edit point here. When I'm looking at it, I hope I didn't put this one in tungsten and that one in daylight. Because there's a good chance I did, but I didn't change it. Maybe it just got accidentally changed somehow when I was doing all the settings. But I sure hope not. I think it's just the settings on the camera. I really do hope that I have one brighter than the other. And I am telling you all this stuff, and it's probably going to get cut anyways, so... maybe I should go for a different one. Like, you know, like, I feel like I'm holding a choke in a fight too long, and if I keep going for it, I'm going to gas myself out. All right, there we go. Once you get it going, it's good. I have one of those little cutter things, but I always misplace it. So I'm going to show you, because I don't know. There we go. Okay, let's see if it is a factory press disc. Looks pretty factory to me. Yeah, looks good to me. Looks factory pressed. Ooh, enter your music. Get rewarded for the movies you love. They got rewards thing on there too. So hope that answered your question. I'm sorry to everyone else that had to sit through it. So we have some answers here. Basically, I asked next year, what would you like the segment to be, or next season, because I'm doing the Hammer Horror season. So basically, Jonathan Willem, he makes a joke here first. I will read it for you guys. The Terror of the Mummy. What about the Daddy? Yuck, yuck, yuck. I think for the next year, you should do a segment where you review a different blaxploitation movie each week. As always, solid reviews for the goodness of Jeremy. Get a haircut, you slacker. Hey, just because he's got one on the video doesn't mean I have to have one. Nick Moore, I enjoyed the way you reviewed the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake and its prequel. Maybe could compare some classics and the remakes if they were good or laughably bad. You and Jeremy often seem to disagree about certain movies. The pair, you could defend your favorite films each week and try to convince the other about the particular film's merit, place in cinema history. I don't know if we feel passionate enough to argue that much, but I do appreciate it, you know what I mean? Because he did not like Straw Dogs, and I think it's a good movie. Peter England, for next season, special segment, I would love to see you do reviews of James Bond, from Dr. No to License to Kill. So no Pierce Brosnan and Daniel Craig, although I love Craig's Bond. So Bond movies all year. Chris Rivers, for next year's series, how about holiday horror? You could tie the films in you select for a review to the closest holiday. There would definitely be some interesting selections that I'd be curious to hear your opinion on. That sounds interesting. Ilk Vomit, after Hammer Time comes to its conclusion, I'm all for you doing nothing but reviews on Vinegar Syndrome. I really dig the company and what they do, but a lot of the titles I just never heard of, and I'm too skeptical to go in on a blind buy. That is also a great suggestion, and the one I really think I would lean towards. And these ones, Kentucky Cuckinator, suggested for next year's theme, made for TV movies. That's also interesting. And then we have some stragglers from last week about having favorite heavy metal horror movie, which ties into the Thralls and Metal video. Viper Rose, 1978. My metal pick would have to be Hard Rock Zombies, full of 80s cheese, and another film flicked in Canada. Another flick filmed in Canada. Another film flicked? A flick flicked? Oh, tongue twister. Travis Wright, Black Roses, keep up the good work. And Bumpus Hounds, favorite heavy metal horror, Black Roses. That's 2 for Black Roses, man. I need to revisit Black Roses. So I'm going to give you guys the question of the week. And I'm going to ask you, in honor of the American Horror Project, what is your favorite regional horror film? Or exploitation film. Favorite regional horror or exploitation movie. So, boom, hit me with that. I'm really interested in checking some out. And I guess we're going to hop into the update. Okay, let's get into this update. First up is a 4K release of Arizona. This has Danny McBride and Luke Wilson and some other people. I think that Seth Rogen's in it. I'd heard about this from Brian Sauer, I think. Or is it Rob Galuzzo? Rob Galuzzo is the one who kept talking about this movie. Sounded interesting. It was a good price, so I ended up grabbing it. Don't know much about it, except that Rob said it was pretty funny and dark and different. So I don't know Rob, but I listened to him pop up in a lot of podcasts, and I respect his opinion. So I'm going to check that out. Then we got Blu-ray here, Cold Fish. I believe this is a Korean film. This is an import. I had the DVD. Heard good things about this movie. I think 22 Shots of Moods and Horror talked about it. Looks good. Interested. Serial killer film, I believe.
And then we have another one, Overlord. Good price on this. I wanted the 4K, so I was holding off, but I couldn't pass up. $10. I really wanted to check this one out. Nazi horror movie. Looks cool. Looks entertaining. I like zombie movies. I like Nazi horror movies, World War II movies. So yeah, I'm ready to dig in. And then we got Leprechaun Returns. Heard lots of good things about this one, surprisingly. You know, I stopped watching after Leprechaun in the Hood. I didn't even see the Leprechaun Back to the Hood. So I heard this is a direct sequel to the first one. And you know what? I'm willing to give that one a chance, especially it's directed by one of the guys who used to be involved with Astron 6. So yeah, Leprechaun Returns. Why the hell not? Good price, too. Then we got Slaughter of the Innocents from Synapse Films. This has Scott Glenn in it. You know what? I've heard about this. I've seen this cover floating around for years, but I never saw this one. Good price. It was like $15 for a Synapse release. I'm going to go for it. Then we got Steelbook of Platoon. Classic Oliver Stone movie. Looking forward to checking out this new release. Heard the sound spectacular in it. Classic movie, like I said. This one I watched so many times growing up. Always liked it. Great cast. Probably one of the best casts when it comes to a Vietnam movie. Then we got The Vengeance of She. This is a Hammer movie. I'm not covered it in the Hammer stuff this year. I think it's less horror and less gothic thriller stuff. So I avoided it. This is a sequel to She. I've not seen this one. So yeah, check this one out as well. Eventually. And then we got we got a bunch of stuff fallen, apparently. Then we got The Witches, which is another Hammer horror movie. Does witchcraft exist today? I don't know. Hopefully the movie lets us know. But yeah, this looks cool. Got a good price on it. Couldn't pass it up. And last, but certainly not least, we got Peter Cushing in Frankenstein Created Woman. This is one of the Frankenstein Hammer horror movies, so I'm interested in checking this one out. Yeah, I guess this is a collector's edition. But regardless, I'm going to be picking up all the Hammer movies that anybody's putting out. So yeah, I guess we're going to hop back to the video. All right, hope you enjoyed that update. I want to give a shout out to a new patron, Michael Brisson. I want to make sure I said his last name right. Brisson? I probably mispronounced it one time right there. But regardless, thank you for everything. You left some kind words last time, then you decided to donate, and I'm interested in checking out the movie that you picked for me. It looks really weird and crazy, so it's like a collection of weird shorts. But I guess that's pretty much it. Stay around for the Thralls of Metal interview / review of Deathgasm, and this name is her. This is Spinal Tap, which is filled with spoilers, and it's lots of rants, and it's lots of jokes, so I hope you enjoy that kind of free-for-all style. But thank you very much, guys, for watching, and as always, you guys have a good one. Hey, guys, what's up? I got some, I guess, new people that are going to be on Screaming Toilet and whatnot. Why don't you guys introduce yourselves?
Well, I'm Necrotic Nick, and
Shredlord from the Thralls of Metal page on YouTube.
And we're a music review site. We also do fucking stupid games and shit involving metal, going down lists of favorite albums, yada yada yada. Lots of just fun metal-oriented stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We like to basically take our passion and bring it to the YouTube channels and give our stupid yet informative opinions on the matter.
Juvenile humor included.
Always juvenile humor.
Always.
I've known Joe for like, I don't know, how long? 20 years? 20 years, give or take.
20 years, baby.
Yeah, so he's like one of my best friends, and I was like, well, Screaming Toilet's supposed to have all sorts of stuff on there. I thought Joe had a channel. I was like, that's perfect. So you guys go sub. There'll be links below. Right now, we're just going to talk about, their influences, a little bit about metal and stuff. They'll do that. Then we're going to hop in a couple reviews, heavy metal horror movies or heavy metal-oriented movies. And then we're just going to bullshit about random heavy metal movies and rock and roll movies or whatever the hell. So I guess I'll let you guys take it and just talk a little bit about your influences in music. Because when I was listening to you guys earlier, and you guys were like, and this song, and this album, and this. I heard some of the names. I'm like, Steve Vai, I know who that is. But then, it got to certain points, I'm like, do I sound like this to regular people when I'm talking about movies? And I'm like, yeah, the cinematography is great. And I was
Probably.
Like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. Like, they sound smart, but I couldn't really back up their facts or not.
No. When it comes down to metal, it is difficult for me to rein in the fanboy. Like, as soon as I hear, like, oh, I like Megadeth, like, I want to talk about every other band that might be closely related to that, and then throw in some underground shit because that's me. But I've been a metalhead since high school, which was a long time ago. And yeah, it was a music that just kind of spoke to my pissed off teenager bullshit. Like jamming Pantera for the first time. I was like, yeah, this guy sounds as angry as I am, and
he's mad as hell.
I'm gonna kick this wall for no reason. And then,
maybe that's how Kyles were born. The first drywall punch of a Kyle.
Well, I was kicking it. But I probably did punch it. I don't know. I was a pissed off kid. But yeah, it was just something I got into. Like it just naturally echoed with all of my rage, and it kind of worked as a fun sort of catharsis in a way. You know, it was more constructive than just being a shitty teenager all the time, which was still most of the time. But, you know, dialed it down a bit.
For me, it all started with playing music. I got into guitar playing, as you know, at a very young age. So I started listening to certain guitar players like Randy Rhoads, Ozzy Osbourne, and Guns N' Roses, and that kind of stuff. So it first started with, like, even though the 80s are a cheesy time,
they're still fun.
It's very fun. In nostalgia, it's fun. And also, some of the best guitar players you will ever hear are in the 80s. Even though they were probably like, you know what, I could go one of two ways. I could be either really talented and be a hometown hero, or I can just suck it up, write some love ballad songs, and go on tour and make millions. So that's what most of them did.
That's what everybody does.
But you know what?
Yeah. You forgot to douse yourself in Aquanet, though.
Yeah, a lot of Aquanet was used. A lot of teased hair. But that's kind of was my introduction, and then I got into heavier stuff like Death and Megadeth and Slayer and Pantera, Sepultura a little bit. I wasn't as big into Sepultura as the rest of you guys were.
Sepultura was a big
you know, and that's what kind of led me down that dark path. You know, big love affair in high school with Typo Negative. You know, Peter Steele. He's sad, but he's still big and a badass, and I loved him. So, you know, all that kind of stuff, man.
Feelings.
Yeah, and for me, it was more or less, I know you like a lot of the heavier, like even grindcore stuff. That's not really my style. I listen to the metal that has a little bit more technical proficiency, like the musicianship's higher, just because that's what I like listening to for the most part.
So you're more of like the less lyrical guy, more of like the music. I know stuff like that. Yeah, I remember all the guitar solos you showed me. Ingve Malmsteen, Joe Satriani.
I used to make this guy listen to stuff. He'd be like, I don't give a shit. He was nice enough to act like he cared, but he didn't give a shit.
It wasn't bad. It's
but it was
like an acquired taste. Like the first time you eat sushi, you're like, I have no judgment on this. I can't tell if it's bad or good. I don't know shit. And then after you eat it more and more, you're like, it's pretty good. It's pretty good. It's like acquired taste with music and movies and everything.
You need that baseline reading.
Yeah. When we used to think good sushi was Kroger's sushi, that
it was better than Myers.
You're right. Yeah.
Myers is toxic waste. I swear. It was so bad. I think Jeremy took it back. He was like, "Can you refund on this? Run this back.
I can't eat this.
Run this back." No, but is there like I would you know you're talking about like extreme horror movies or just watching horror movies in general. You start to go down a rabbit hole and you start to get the independent stuff because you've seen all the big stuff. And then you hit like certain, like I'd say like the staple movie that when you hit to extreme stuff, like, and it never is the same as Cannibal Holocaust as far as movies are concerned. So what, is there an equivalent to music in that, like heavy metal?
I mean, it's kind of hard to say. Like, I always say grindcore is one of the most extreme forms of metal, period. It's, the songs rarely go over a minute and a half, maybe 2.5 minutes at the longest. It's a combination of extreme metal and hardcore punk. It's political, it's also gore oriented too, and it is just fast and abrasive. The guitar tone is ridiculously heavy. This is like popularized by bands like Napalm. Napalm
almost sounds like a chainsaw.
And you also get into like gore grind and porno grind, which go way off the fucking rails. Oh yeah, it's just way out there, and I just love it's the single most violent musical outburst you can find in a short, condensed amount of time. Like their albums. Most grindcore albums will have like 20, 25 tracks on them.
But they're all like a minute.
Just ripping through, and they just hate you with every single fucking song.
It's like a violent orgasm or something.
Yeah.
Like a quick
multiple violent orgasms. That might be a song title on one of those.
Or a band.
Yeah.
Or it could be a violent orgasm. If you don't have a band name and you use violent, we want a cut.
We want 10 cents per every dollar you make.
I mean,
and a song named after each of us.
I mean, Cannibal Corpse already had I Come Blood, so I mean that's
I'm sure it's taken.
It's a romantic title.
It is. It is actually a love song. So our entrails ripped from a virgin's cunt. That's also a sweet one.
But if you come blood, go to the doctor.
Yeah, definitely.
Immediately.
Definitely. Don't second guess that.
I feel like that's the aftermath of taking that. You remember in the Viagra commercials back in the day, they're like, if you have an erection lasting longer than 4 hours, that's probably at the point where you start ejaculating blood.
I think it's actually just syphilis. I think you actually eventually do ejaculate blood when you have syphilis. So, I mean, you got syphilis, bro. That's not good.
I wish there was a
So I should
fun name
tell
for syphilis.
people now.
Or later.
I wish there was a more fun name for syphilis. Like the clap. Yeah,
Send them a nice Hallmark card. Like, surprise, you have
syphilis!
Also, is it your birthday? This is a birthday card. My bad.
It's like, I'm doubling up. I'm saving. I'm helping the environment.
Yeah.
If it's not your birthday, just save this until it's your birthday and you have a birthday card too. Sorry, I gave
Here's
you
$5. It's Canadian.
5 loonies. Here's 5 loonies.
Here's 5 Confederate dollars my dad gave me 10 years ago as a present. It was in his safe when he died. Here you go. It's no use to me. But I guess you guys want to talk a little bit about did you watch the movies too?
I've actually seen Deathgasm before. And as soon as it came to Netflix, in fact, I watched it because, like, all right, this is when I heard about
knew it.
And, like, all right, metal and horror movies occasionally in the past have been overly campy, but not in, like, that good way. Like, they catered more towards, like, glam metal and such.
Yeah.
Like, they asked a focus group, it's like, all right, well, what's metal? Like, well, that Poison band is awful heavy, and, well, Winger, I don't know about them. This one catered more towards, like, the rabid metalheads that like the more
They were a
extreme
black
stuff.
metal band.
Yeah.
And they made a black metal music video.
All right,
Corpse paint and all.
We're going to talk a little bit about Deathgasm, which came out in 2015. It's actually a New Zealand film. I didn't know if you guys knew that. But yeah, this one I saw when it came out, and I immediately thought of my friend Joe. Because Joe, growing up, and I made him watch all sorts of horror movies. I remember Joe was over at like 12 years old, like getting sick from Meet the Feebles. Because he came from a normal family, and I came from a cesspool.
But it worked me. It just took some,
it's
some
a
time.
disgusting movie.
Yeah.
It's terribly gross. And I'm like, this is gross.
I still think about The Item. You know what?
I love that movie.
I talked about that movie in an earlier video we did, like in an earlier podcast, long time ago. They're like things that fucked you up. I'm like, The Item fucked me up, dude.
But you may have started seeing sodomy too.
The heavy guy and the guy with cancer in that movie are just like two characters that they just like
every day.
You feel terrible for the whole movie.
Yeah.
They're just stuck in a bad place. But yeah, this movie I just wanted Joe to check it out, and I didn't actually. I rewatched it. And I really loved it the first time. This time I'm coming around. I didn't love it as much, but I still enjoyed the hell out of it. What did you think?
I loved it. I thought it was very campy at times. It reminded me of Evil Dead style as far as like the zombies and stuff.
This was definitely like their tribute to like Peter Jackson's original trilogy.
No doubt. That's I don't think New Zealand, when they make a horror movie, I don't think they can get away from Peter
Jackson.
Jackson.
Dead Alive is up there with like my favorite horror comedies. Like it is fantastic. Bad Taste is right up there with just weirdness.
Oh, I love Peter Jackson.
But yeah, it definitely plays on that. But I mean, I thought they did the metal aspect really well. The music was solid. The soundtrack was really good. Actually, I think it features a band from Ohio, a band called Midnight, which is a one-man black and roll band.
What's a black and roll band?
Combination of like Motorhead and then black metal. Okay. Like so, it's still very much kind of evil sounding, but there's like kind of more rock and roll riffs. Like this dude wears like a fucking sock or something over his head, like a black sock. Sets his bass on fire and shit and fucking plays, and then like all the pictures are with like fucking naked chicks covered in blood.
Which of course you had to have. That was the the super cheese moments, like in the beginning when he's like playing the guitar, and all the chicks are like naked and he uses his eyes to show her tits, and then you know, or then when the girl listens to the metal CD for the first time, she's like, oh, I thought that was pretty.
That was definitely like straight ripped from an album cover.
Yeah,
but this movie's, I think the monsters look is definitely from like Lamberto Bava's Demons. Straight up demons. Like they're very inspired by demons with the claws and everything like that.
Like more pronounced features in the face.
Except they didn't have the glowing eyes.
Yeah.
I thought the effects the practical stuff was really great, but rewatching it, the CGI stuck out more to me, and I was like. And they always threw it in when it wasn't needed. Yeah. Like it's like, oh, that scene was good. Oh, why did they just throw CGI blood splatter for no reason afterwards? Like in post,
it really made me hate his cousin. When his cousin, when he killed his cousin, that was one of my favorite parts.
Me too.
Yeah, because you hated that guy.
It's the end of the world.
I'm all right with this one.
I mean, like like it's one thing if he was like your cousin that beat you up occasionally, but your cousin that literally like almost put you in a hospital, then wrecked your room, one or the other at a time, but both. Screw them.
Screw that guy. Yeah, he's like, no, he came in the front door mumbling something about Satan or something.
Spoilers, by the way, guys, because we're going to spoil it. This movie came out like 4 years ago. Yeah, like I remember my friend was watching that, and he hates this movie. And he was like, oh, I hated that part. I was like, it fit with the tone of the movie.
Who was it?
It was one of my. It's Dustin. Didn't care for that.
Oh, okay.
But I was like, it fits with the tone of the movie.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The tone has that going on in it. It's not like it was out of tone. The whole tone is kind of like that. The high school stuff was a little bit cheesy and shaky for me.
It definitely was. But I like going back to the black metal stuff. I even like the fact that like they kept it pretty authentic.
Yes.
Like the lifestyle culture seemed pretty authentic to black metal.
Yeah.
Even using, it's not going that far, but like using a BC Rich, that style of guitar he had is very appropriate for the style. Like the little things seemed very cool and very appropriate. Made it a little bit more authentic for me.
The whole conversation in the record store where the two characters act brainy too. That's pretty much how metalheads operate.
That's how
too.
movie fans do. Yeah, like Wasteland, they'd be picking stuff up. Like, that's a good one.
That's
like,
a good one.
Yeah, this one's good too.
But occasionally you're one of the guys like, that's weak, man. You gotta get this one. Like, yeah, like, all right, man, I'll check it out. Why you gotta be a dick about this album though?
Yeah, there's always somebody that's like, every time you talk to somebody that's like a mutual fan, and they always try to like act like they're like superior, like
the elitist attitude.
Oh.
And then like later you come to find out they don't know more shit than you. They just are insecure and they fucking pathetic. Like, nobody's seen or listened to everything. You can't hear it all. And when somebody's like,
I'm gonna try.
Don't you hate when you're talking to somebody and you're like, have you seen this one? You're like, no, I haven't seen that one. And then I'm like, you can't see them all. They're like, yeah, you can. And it's like, if you tell me you think you can see them all or listen to it all, I know you haven't seen shit. Because it's like knowledge. Once you open a door to one thing, 100 more doors open.
You could probably give them 30 movies they've never seen before.
Exactly.
Oh, really?
But I just don't care about their opinion enough to talk to them for that long.
I just don't give a fuck.
I just don't give a fuck.
It's like, if you're wearing out, you're welcome, but I'm just going to keep nodding. Like,
You do you, man. All right.
Yeah, just give me my money.
Fork it over here, you little bastards. But yeah, I really dug that movie, man. It was super cool. It's a fun one. I'd watch it again.
Oh, yeah.
Will it compete with the greatest movie of all time, Rock and Roll Nightmare? I
Oh
don't
my
know.
God, dude!
I don't know.
I knew you were going to bring that one up.
It's the greatest movie of all time.
We'll talk about that
and you
later.
only have yourself to thank for my love of that movie.
We watched that.
John
I don't know if I had seen that before. I think I might have watched that before, but I put it in and we watched the video in Blakeman and we just died.
Rock and Roll Nightmare.
But
Then on a budget of $20.
I like the lead in this movie too. Canadian, yes, that's
the guy who played Brody.
Yeah, he's good. He's also in a movie called Blood Punch, which is like Groundhog's Day and it has murder in it.
Oh,
it's
okay.
really fun. And he also, I guess, was in Power Rangers, but that's just years ago. I looked at his IMDb because I was like, he's in Death. He's
the first one?
No, like later.
Oh, okay.
Like one of the million renditions of Power Rangers that me and you guys would have no business watching unless you're a weirdo. Sorry, people that watch Power Rangers when you're a grown man and you don't got kids. No offense.
Oh, when we were kids? Yeah. I haven't watched Power Rangers in 100 years.
I'm just kidding, but
don't you judge me!
Some guy's like, unsubscribe.
Unfollow.
He's like, report.
Fuck this.
Hey.
This guy's stupid.
He's probably watching it in the Power Rangers uniform right now. This stuff's still cool, alright?
He's like, Megazord! Why isn't it working?
God damn it.
I didn't put batteries.
My power coin is out. Oh.
Mom, go give me some batteries!
But regardless, I thought it was a pretty fun movie, and I didn't know shit about the soundtrack or anything, but I
Yeah.
could tell like they were naming some like bands that like, oh yeah, I've heard of them and stuff, and I like the lead in it. The gore's good in it. It has a fun overall feel. The only thing that really bothered me in that movie is like the four main characters, they seem to have like a good bond with each other. And then at the very end, the two characters that have been with them the whole time, they killed them really unceremoniously. Where like it wasn't impactful enough. It's like, yeah, that should have been a scene where it's like, no, goddamn, slow it down, have some emotion. It's like that was just like it looked like they ran out of fucking money.
Yeah, it looked a little rushed at the end for sure.
Yeah. But what would you guys come in right now? I'm like at a 7.25 out of 10 or something. I'll do 10.
I'd probably give it a solid 7.
Yeah.
I mostly, being a metalhead, I love the soundtrack and the overall feel of it. Some parts were campy, but it felt like the appropriate campy. Like, it's like, all right, this is cheesy in a way I like, and I'd definitely watch it again. And if they decide to do another one because they kind of left it open there, I'm down. I'm 100% down.
How is it to be dead? Oh, it's sweet. Yeah, I love that. I love that thing at the end. I'd say 7.5. I enjoyed it. It was my first time watching it. Yeah, around a 7. In the 7s.
I rarely give 10s.
You shouldn't give 10s.
I'm so I'm terrible too. Like I'll watch an old classic movie for the first time, and sometimes I'll give it a 10. But most of the time, if it's a first time watch, never a 10. And most of the time, if it's a new movie, I just don't have the same attachment to.
We try not to. I don't think we've ever given a perfect score so far.
Well, I have given one for Devin Townsend's last stuff. That was my only 5-star rating. But I mean, there's a lot of stuff out there, and like getting that perfect score. I mean, you gotta hit everything perfectly, and you can just you can pick out minute details that I didn't like, in a movie.
A perfect album boils down to preference, right?
Yeah.
Because you can only do so good. Yeah,
it's entirely subjective.
Some of it's objective, some subjective.
Yeah.
Like some people are just objectively bad. Some people might like it, but there's no arguing that it's bad.
Yeah, art. I mean, it's art, right?
Like Herschel Gordon Lewis, a lot of those movies are objectively bad. Like they're shit, but sometimes people like it.
Ben Affleck movies.
Pearl Harbor was excellent. Shut your mouth.
No one has ever said that out loud until now, I think.
I'm trying to think. I don't know if I ever really hate Ben Affleck or ever really like Ben Affleck. He's just okay.
He's been there.
Yeah,
I don't
no
problem.
It just drives me nuts. It's like, dude, like him reading his lines is like him reading a menu at Denny's. Like you delivered it with the same level of.
Then you've never heard me deliver order at Denny's.
I will have the moons over my hammy.
Mike,
please.
Chicken finger dinner, side of pancakes.
How about them seasoned fries?
And apple pie, but bring out the apple pie with the rest of the food.
There you go.
Because
this motherfucker doesn't take any home.
Leftovers for kids.
I mean, you conquer the meal.
Oh, I don't. I think he may be able to eat more than both of us.
Not the same.
Not at the same time. No, not collect.
No, that's not human.
Individually, I think so.
I feel like you're throwing down a gauntlet.
I mean, we
I feel like we're getting chicken wings after this.
I've already gone this route with him. When we were kids, we went to Hooters, and I tried to out-eat him, and it ended with me puking because I couldn't. And like 35 wings, I'm like, I can't do it.
Me and Joe are too competitive. And over stupid shit only, though, too.
It was like, that's a tap out. You lost.
Oh, I said no. I mean, I gracefully bowed out, and I think he ate like 50 fucking Hooter wings.
I was 55 at once at Hooters.
Yeah,
and Hooters sucks, so
Yeah.
it was all about the glory.
Everyone goes there for the wings, okay? God.
Yeah, it's...
Totally the wings.
Totally the wings.
Totally the wings, 100%.
You know what? We've babbled. Let's roll that trailer.
You know that evil heavy metal that your parents hate you listening to? You know those lyrics about hell, demons, and doom? What if I told you it's all real? I know. I was there.
Jesus! It's piss.
That's me, Brody. My friends are losers, so we started a band.
This is for Tote.
Check it out. Ricky Daggers. Is he dead? Wouldn't it be crazy if the music had something to do with demons?
Demons.
We're all gonna die. I translated those pages. Now, people are turning crazy. Like possessed crazy.
What's up?
That was pretty cool, as is, I mean, the axe and the...
You know, I'm not even sure I'm in the right tuning. Brother, still.
All right, this is the one I decided because I always do that disc for that, and Joe always wanted me to watch this. Is Spinal Tap.
Always.
It's a cult movie. Everybody's talked about this movie, so I was like, yeah, it's one of those like kind of guilty things that I'd never seen, and I knew it was a mockumentary. I knew a lot about it. Rob Reiner obviously directed it, and those guys went on to do Best in Show and a bunch of other mockumentaries. And watching it, I was like, of course this is. I knew it was going to be genius, and it's loaded with a bunch of character actors and bit roles, but it's also like almost feels pretty authentic at times too.
Yeah, definitely. You know, some of these bands were doing shit like that.
I'll let them take it away because they obviously are experts on metal and this kind of music scene more than me.
But I do want to come back to you and get your opinion, though, because
it's great.
Like Dave said, I had literally begged him. He, of course, never had the time because he has 10,000 other fucking movies to watch. But, you know. I
was really bad about watching movies that people asked me to. I was always shitty about it. Like, teachers back in high school would like, loan me the movies, and I'm like, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. Or just put it to the side. They're like, oh, did you watch that movie? Yeah, I'll bring it back. And
it's like good movies, to be like Shawshank Redemption. I'm like, I'll watch it later.
I don't have time for this shit. I gotta watch
Hellraiser 3 again.
Hellraiser, man. Pinhead's never bad. But anyway, going back.
That's a lie, and you know it.
Well, yeah.
I remember Satan's in that movie.
Oh, that's right. Another, well, kind of.
What, Hellraiser 3?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, Motorhead, that's a song, I think, too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hellraiser.
It's a great fucking song.
Actually, little known fact, if you want to know the truth, Lemmy wrote that song, released his version, then Ozzy later on released his own version of that song.
So that was Hellraiser 3.
Starring Spinal Tap.
And the music video is awesome because Lemmy's fucking playing cards with Pinhead, and he beats him. He beats Pinhead because fucking Lemmy is Lemmy.
There's no euchre in hell.
That's what you think. Why don't you tell me if there's euchre in hell?
Only 5-card stud had the game.
You're not a patriot unless you play 5-card stud.
2s and 3s are wild. Reach in my pocket, I got a surprise. All right. You want to get on Spinal Tap?
Yeah. So, the amazing thing about Spinal Tap, obviously, is it follows around the greatest band of all time, arguably, and to their misadventures during the 70s. The great thing about this movie to me is the fact that they poke fun at the lifestyle and all the life of excess stuff that rock stars of the 70s and 80s were known for,
Hedonism.
Yeah, and all the crazy symbolism and stuff, try to make everything look evil. Of course, movies do the same thing, but things from the Stonehenge fuck up, which is amazing, to where Harry Shearer gets caught in the pod, and he's like, guys,
pops out at the end, and everyone's going right. And
it's got a great cast. Like Michael McKean was an SNL regular.
Christopher Guest,
and then of course Harry Shearer from The Simpsons.
Dude, yeah.
And then the cameos were great too.
Yep.
Like
Billy Crystal.
I didn't even recognize Billy Crystal in that first.
Young Fran Drescher.
Bruno Kirby.
Yep.
He was great in the cabin. He did the whole thing like, he's Sinatra, and then he started talking about they just roll up the window.
These guys, they got no respect.
I love Bruno Kirby.
The whole mysterious thing about all their drummers.
Yep.
Rest in peace, Stumpy Joe.
There was like 9 of them, right?
Yeah.
Complete accident. We were clear of any wrongdoing whatsoever.
An unfortunate gardening accident.
The herpy gig.
The herpy gig was great. Fran Drescher.
Oh yeah.
What do you want it to say on your tombstone? Here lies David St. Hubbins, and why not?
It's a pretty damn genius movie, and like the one guy's just such a moron and stuff. He has this complete space cadet. He's Christopher Guest. He's no clue he's talking about the whole movie.
All of his one of my favorite parts, obviously, is when he's playing the piano and showing Rob Reiner like all his musical equipment stuff.
Beautiful son. It was
just stupid things like, well, if you want your amp to be louder, why don't you just make 10 louder? And he just couldn't grasp that concept. He's like,
yeah, but there's an 11.
But mine goes to 11.
That was
like, yeah, but you could. Never mind.
Or this is a love song. Oh, it's beautiful. He's like, it's in D minor, the saddest of all keys. Oh, what do you title that piece? It's called Lick My Love Pump. Like, that's the epitome of 80s stuff, man. They'd write all these soft ballads when really it was just nothing more than a pine to get girls to sleep with them.
Rob Reiner's genius in this one.
Yes.
Because he's channeling, I think, a lot of other directors. I don't know. I'm just gonna say, like, he's wearing a hat like the director would wear. Is he like a mixture of like Spielberg and John Milius? I don't really know what he's going for, but it's just perfect with that Navy hat.
Yeah, always that hat.
He's like really intellectual, but he's like, I first discovered this band, and then he's like, it's just like the dumbest band ever, and he's still interested.
Complete idiots.
Yeah, these are my pet idiots. I love it. The guitar that no one could look at too.
Oh yeah.
No, look at it.
You can't even look at it.
Touch it. It can never be played ever. But it's ridiculous. But again, in all the right ways. Like them getting lost and everything.
Under the stage.
Rock and roll. Wait, you're supposed to turn left here.
They go around.
To the table. You guys must have made a wrong turn. And the whole like struggling to stay relevant, and the Yoko Ono chick that comes in.
Oh yeah. Of course.
I drew all of you guys as astrological signs. That's great.
Garbage. It's making fun of a lot of the stuff that probably actually happened to rock bands. So it's like it feels almost like I said accurate but ridiculous. Like, and it's that fine line. And I think the only movie that I saw that would have came before this that kind of like almost poked fun at all the different musical genres, because they do back when they go to the 50s and they have Ed Begley Jr. on the drums. And the only movie I've seen that kind of made fun of all those different genres of music was Phantom of Paradise. By Brian De Palma, where he's doing the theater, and it has like the one band that constantly is the 50s and the 60s, and makes fun of like the Beach Boys style, and it does all the different kind of music. And
they have the weird.
That's a really cool movie too. And it reminds me of that, but it's different. That one's not like satire. It is satire, but it's not a mockumentary. The difference, but Also, the one other thing I could say about it was I love seeing Patrick Macnee in it. Not to be confused with Patrick McGoonan or Patrick Magny, all these fucking British guys. But Macnee from Waxwork, he's in a bunch of stuff. He's his uncle in the wheelchair. He was the guy who ran the company.
Oh my God, I have to watch that again.
Yeah,
I haven't watched Waxwork in fucking forever either.
Yeah, but yeah, I just like the cast was really top notch and tons of cameos.
Oh
and stuff.
yeah.
And the relationship between Christopher Guest and Michael McKean was so uncomfortable. Like they were kind of gay, I think, together. They had some weird relationship with each other. But like Guest was in love with Michael Keane, and he was really jealous of the girlfriend because he's always like off to the side staring, and it's just really funny.
It was awesome. Like, and it feels authentic to a degree. Like it feels like this could have been a true story to some extent.
Yeah,
with
definitely.
Minor embellishments. That's one thing I really got into it, and it's a fun fucking story. Like you get wrapped up, and the music is actually pretty solid.
The lyrics are really funny,
dude. Fat Bottom fucking rules.
I've heard worse real songs. I've heard worse written songs than that.
You can turn on the radio right now, and we can guarantee find a worse song.
I was listening to some, not from the movie, but some tracks from them, like Bitch School. And that music video is funny because it basically starts off with the guy trying to explain to them. He's like, they just can't grasp the concept that they're going to do a music video in an all-girls school. And then finally Christopher Guest's like, well, I guess all females would make us look more male then.
or when they argue about the album cover.
Yeah.
Like if you were
smell the glove.
If you were in bondage, you'd be different. Like, oh, it's a fine line between what is it, genius and stupidity or something like that.
Shark sandwich.
Shark sandwich. The review simply said shit sandwich. Or intravenous de Milo.
Who printed that? It's one of these movies. Right when I was watching it, I was like, "Oh, this is definitely one that you watch more and more, and it gets better and better." Like any of the Coen brother movies.
Yes.
Like the first time you watch it, that was very good, very clever. But like you think back and you're like, "It's so fucking funny," and you keep repeating the lines.
Yeah,
like it's just genius.
Yeah, you figure it out more. You appreciate things more the more times you go at it.
It's not exactly laugh out loud the first time you see it, but it's just like cringy and awkward. But you keep thinking of the lines, and when you say them to yourself, you're like, "That's fucking hilarious." I watched it for the first time. I knew it was good. I knew it was going to be good.
And that's probably why you delayed it, right? Because you're like, yeah, this is good.
Everybody has like a list of movies they haven't seen that they're like embarrassed by. Like, you know what I mean? You're just like, I haven't seen it. And then people are like, you haven't seen it? You're like, we got to stop doing that, guys.
Quit movie shaming.
Or anything. Like, people do it with obscure movies, too. It's like, I haven't seen Zombie Bloodbath 3. You ain't seen Zombie Bloodbath 3?
Son of a bitch.
I'm not one of the 12 people that checked it out in 1999 when it came out. Sorry, I missed that one.
Did you see 2 at least?
Yeah, I did see Rage of the Undead. It was pretty good.
The Raging Hard-On of the Undead, Part 17.
There actually is 3 zombie bloodbaths. And the second one is Rage of the Undead by Todd Sheets.
All right.
Do you guys want to say anything else about Spinal Tap?
If you haven't seen it, 100% watch it. It's incredible.
It's a great comedy. Don't take it too seriously, or you suck assholes.
Yeah, seriously. Don't get offended by it.
I don't think it's not offensive. It's not offensive. It's not offensive at all. No.
Just don't expect it to be serious.
No. I mean, Rob Reiner, though, he's done so much stuff, and I know I've seen a couple of his movies, but I should go back and watch some more of his
definitely.
stuff. He was always great on what is it? Jesus. Archie Bunker show, All in the Family?
Yeah,
he was great in that. Meathead, so.
Good at one-liners, too. Like, one-liners are always prevalent in his movies. Hell, even Princess Bride is loaded with a ton of them.
God. He plays it straight, too, in Spinal Tap, perfect.
Yeah.
Yep.
He plays it. They all play it straight.
Yeah.
You got to play it straight.
Yeah,
when you know you're being, always play it straight.
You can't Jimmy Fallon it.
No.
Fuck Jimmy Fallon. I don't know why. Even when like Adam Sandler would sometimes laugh, I'd be like, I like that guy.
Yeah.
I don't care. It's Chris Farley. You can't not laugh. Yeah. Jimmy Fallon would be like, I got your coffee, Mr. Reynolds.
I'm on TV with Burt Reynolds.
Yeah, but all right.
Fuck up.
People are like, unsubscribe. Love Jimmy Fallon.
I watch
Jimmy,
show
do you
every
see
time.
this shit? Look what these fucking chotch bags said about you.
Please
you know what? I'm going to tell this story because it's ridiculous. This is completely unrelated to this, but I'm going to tell. Jake's an asshole. My cousin Jake. Remember this one time Jake got drunk and he was complaining about Tesla, the band? And I was like, they're fine, okay, whatever.
Which I have been fortunate enough, my band has been fortunate enough to open it up for Tesla.
I shouldn't even say this, but Jake starts complaining about him. He's drunk, and we start arguing. Like, they're all right. I don't even care enough to argue with you. So he's like, he takes our other friend's cell phone, who's drunk, doesn't care, and he speed dial. He gets operated. He's like, get me a number to Tesla. And somehow they give him a number. I don't know if it's actually their management or whatever, but he gets on there and he starts complaining to him on the answering machine at like, I don't know, midnight. And he's like, Tesla should be taken in public and killed. No, wait, shame, because he realized he said, and then he hung up. I was like, so he does this. The other day, him and Corey add me to a private group on Facebook, private message, and they're like, guys, the whole series of Renegades on YouTube. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. I was like, I fucking hate
Lorenzo Lamas,
I said, Lorenzo Lamas sucks. If I want a guy who may or may not be part Native American, I'll take Lou Diamond Phillips, and he sucks too. and then it said,
unless it's
and then it said Jake Benson has added Lorenzo Lamas to the conversation, and they're like, please don't hurt him. Please don't hurt Dave. He doesn't know what he's talking about, Lorenzo. And I was just like, leave conversation. I was like, I'm not trying to. If he does on the off chance, I'm not trying to hurt dude's feelings. Not that he would ever see it or care what I think.
I think I saw the Snake Eater movies when they were on Joe Bob Briggs Drive-In Theater
of course.
years ago. But that's about it. I mean, I watched a little bit of Renegade.
I don't know nothing.
He's not a good actor.
I don't know nothing about Lorenzo Lamas. I don't want to know.
And Renegades, I like the guy who played his partner better than I like Lorenzo Lamas.
I probably saw episodes of that show and don't remember a damn thing.
I guarantee it. Everyone saw it at least once or twice.
Roll this is Spinal Tap.
Very delicate. It's a bit of a departure from the kind of thing you normally play. What do you call this?
Well, this piece is called Lick My Love Pump.
This is the loudest,
Rock and roll!
most explosive band in heavy metal history. This is Spinal Tap.
There's such a fine line between stupid and clever.
The funniest movie ever made about rock and roll.
He choked on vomit. Well, they can't prove whose vomit it was.
The monumental classic.
There was a Stonehenge monument on the stage that was in danger of being crushed by a dwarf.
The makeup of your audience seems to be young boys.
Oh, it's a sexual thing, really.
We've got, armadillos in our trousers. I mean, it's really quite frightening.
No, don't touch
I was just pointing at it.
Well, don't point. I'm sure I'd feel much worse if I weren't under such heavy sedation.
The cult phenomenon.
The numbers all go to 11.
Does that mean it's louder? Is it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
This is Spinal Tap.
Let's hop in here. Guys, we're going to talk about some heavy metal and rock and roll horror movies that we like. I know there's like dozens. The Gate, Trick or Treat, Hard Rock Zombies,
Rock and Roll Nightmare with John Michael Thor.
Heavy metal.
Edit note. Cutting that out. No,
the movie's so bad. It's so fucking bad.
It's so bad it's a good movie. When people are like, man, Troll 2 is the best, so bad it's a good movie. I was like, no, man, Maximum Overdrive, Rock and Roll Nightmare. Even though Maximum Overdrive is actually, I think, good.
Yeah.
Rock and Roll Nightmare is the best, shittiest metal hard rock horror movie because, number one, it was more like
a vanity project.
Yeah, it was 80s metal, like 80s glam rock more.
Glam.
So the John Michael Thor soundtrack was incredibly hilarious.
We accept
the challenge.
The off-brand, it tried to incorporate tons of 80s crap. Like they had ghoulies in there, but they were just really bad hand puppets. Like I would put in a movie.
They were terrible hand puppets. They made no sense. The stars that first of all, the devil was like some kind of cheap prop you could buy at a Halloween store.
Beelzebub. That wasn't the devil.
And he moved like this when he fought. That was pretty bad.
Like, oh man, you can be able to take him in this fight.
For some reason, Satan threw starfish.
With Cheerios.
With Cheerios and suction cups.
Oh God!
Oh,
he got me. Like, you're sure you're not helping him?
But the thing about it is, that's not even what really sucks about the movie. That stuff's fun.
The commentary.
The whole twist at the end is
he's the archangel.
Well, no, he calls himself something else, but he mutters it like, I'm an exorcismer. Cool. What?
And then all of a sudden, evidently, if you're an archangel, your hair gets feathered immediately.
Did he just like
Aquanet powers?
Not finish the movie and then just at the end they had to tack that ending on? Because that's what it looks like. Like they had this really crappy kind of slasher movie and then they were like,
all the kids were fake. It was a whole fake setup just to lure him out.
I've seen movies that ended like that before, but they were like, we ran out of money. What were you gonna do? It was a dream, like Vicious, whatever the fucking one by Albert
How did
Kuhn
they have
is.
to begin with? Like that movie looks like it was shot for $20.
I love movies shot for $20.
Yeah,
Hell,
this
I've
one-
made movies shot for $20.
Not as clever though. It's bad. And like the whole one of the parts that drove me nuts is where he's just sitting there. There's a scene of him just sitting there reading a book or whatever, and he has a can of Coke, and he purposely sets it down and then turns it so the label's out, just so subtly. It was like, oh, there we go. That's where a little bit of the money came from.
Coca-Cola's not good for them muscles, John.
Wasn't that John? He doesn't drink Coke.
He doesn't. He does a lot of drinking now. Have you seen him lately?
But I mean, he's
5,000.
Yeah, he hasn't. We looked up a song just for this. Warp 5000 by John Michael Thor. You will be disappointed.
I don't know if you guys know, but there's a sequel to the Rock and Roll Nightmare called The Intercessor. I never
That's
watched
it.
it.
That's what he called himself. Yeah.
I had no idea what the fuck he said.
And Aaron Walsh said it was the worst movie ever.
I believe him.
Okay, I have to see it now.
It's like early 2000s, so it's just...
Oh my god.
Yeah,
John Michael Thor ran out of money.
The sequel no one was waiting for.
Didn't John Fassenow do that movie, right? I think that's who did. And it's the same guy who did Black Roses, which is way better than Rock and Roll Nightmare.
I haven't seen that one.
And he did Jitters, which is Jumping Vampires, which I have but I never watched. Black Roses is better. Is it Pussy in that from The Sopranos? Isn't he one of the guy's dad? He gets stuck into a big old radio, I think, or a speaker, yeah.
Okay.
I don't think I've seen that since high school because I remember renting it at Video Connection in Westgate because I rented out almost
Rest
their
in peace,
entire
Video Connection.
horror section. But yeah, I mean...
That one's much better.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't have Thor, probably. But Thor, that's not the only movie Thor's in. You guys ever see Zombie Nightmare?
No. But have you seen the documentary about his life?
No.
It's everything you
Did
think.
he pay for it to be made?
Yes.
Then you know it's a vanity product. Get me making a protein shake here.
It's actually like Spinal Tap, except real and kind of tragic.
Yeah.
But he's a very deep lyricist, John Michael Thor. Like one of my favorite songs called "Shit the Pants." Let's see. The opening line is, "The time has come to shit the pants. Spread your legs and take a squatting stance." When you have lyrics that deep, how can you not be in love with a guy like
Why
that?
would you squat if you're shitting your pants?
I was gonna say
That's good, yeah.
Why
would you?
If you're shitting your pants, just stand there like.
Why wouldn't you just let it roll down your leg?
Just stand there like the mentally handicapped person you must be.
Like the teacher in Bloodgasm.
Yeah,
He just shits blood. He's just
that
standing.
guy. I think that guy make it in Housebound too. Another New Zealand movie. I think the teacher pops up in. Yeah, but Rock and Roll Nightmare is not great, but it's fun. You got to see it once.
I love making. That's why I had to bring it up. I love making fun of that movie. It's one of my favorite movies to just rip on and have fun with.
I never hate watching. There's some certain stuff I actually enjoy about Rock and Roll Nightmares. I like little creatures. I don't mind the cheap puppets and stuff like that. That's not what bothers me. It's Thor is not really. It doesn't have any charisma.
No, there's no charisma. Yeah.
It's not a great movie, and it's almost like it's so bad it's good. Black Roses is better. It's been years since I've seen it.
It's been years since I've seen it, but I definitely remember that one.
I had the Synapse DVD. I had the Synapse DVD of Rock and Roll Nightmare and Black Roses. Still do.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, heavy metal and not so much heavy metal 2000. Those were two that I liked. They attached themselves to metal quite a bit. Like, heavy metal was more early heavy metal, like more hard rock, like Blue Oyster Cult.
I even love Detroit Rock City.
John Candy voice in there.
Dude, John Candy and Harold Ramis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fantastic. John Vernon was also a voice in there.
John
too.
Vernon. I'm not gonna lie. I think John Vernon pops up in every episode I do for some reason. I love John Vernon.
Dude, he had a great voice.
And he also was, like I said, like me and the last time we were sitting here talking, I had Matt Hudson. We talked about John Vernon for like 10 minutes. Like, he's just scary. Like, he's intimidating as shit. And everything.
Secret probation. It's a real thing.
Every movie, like I said, whether it's Killer Clowns or The Outlaw Josie Wales, everything. He's just a wonderful actor. I gave those men my word. He freaks out on it.
See, but that movie had a lot of cool stuff that went from sci-fi to horror to just flat out fantasy and shit.
It's the only probably heavy metal horror, not horror, but anthology, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, the second one they didn't go with the anthology. They went with one solid story.
I never saw the second one.
It's okay. It came out in the 2000s. This was still when nu metal was a big thing. So bands like Korn and such were very popular. So they had pretty much B-sides from a lot of those style of bands, except for a couple that were pretty interesting. Like Queens of the Stone Age has a rare song that's only on there.
Well, you know what's funny is you look back at the original heavy metal and people will be like, It's dated, but in the most fantastic way
Yeah.
because of the music. But if you look at Heavy Metal 2000, you're like, this is dated in the most terrible way.
Yeah, I was like, this is just kind of awkward. Like, this is...
Just because I'm imagining the music, you know?
This is manufactured rage right here.
Yeah.
Like, oh, you're not really pissed. Come
You're
on.
not angsty.
All right, you can get mad, you can flip the table, but take the dishes off first. That kind of rage.
Right. I'm gonna go to my room, but I'm not gonna slam my door.
That's like a little kid getting mad about the video game where like he can't break anything. He's like,
Oh, yeah.
and he's hitting his bed, and he's like, shut up. He just shuts up immediately.
Punches a pillow real quick. Fuck. All right.
Wait, is that the same video where the kid tries to shove the
Yeah,
remote up
that's
his
the one I'm
ass?
referring to. That's the one I'm referring to. But that's the
Nothing will show you how mad I am, like shoving the DirecTV remote straight up my beehole.
Like, man.
I hope you get what's it when you get like poop on that? I hope you get hepatitis, Dad. Salmonella. Eating chips. That's
Oh Jesus.
He's eating the chips. And
Want a pretzel?
That's a Mallrats.
Yeah.
Never seen it.
What?
I know, right?
We're
Yeah.
talking about that one another time, I guess.
And then I guess what's some other ones? Trick or Treat's a classic.
Yeah.
86.
It's got Ozzy and Gene Simmons in it, of course, that's why I loved
The
it.
first half of Trick or Treat is amazing. The second half's okay. So
Lackluster.
it comes out to be like decent. And it has that whole 80s killer theme where it's like, I'm electricity like Shocker, or I can jump through bodies. And it feels like a lot like those. Shocker's fun. I guess Shocker would be considered too.
That Megadeth was on the soundtrack.
So is
cover of,
which guy from Kiss? Paul Stanley? The Stanley one?
Was on the soundtrack?
He sings Shocker.
Oh, was he?
I think
See,
he does.
the only one I never owned the soundtrack, but I knew that.
Doesn't he? I think he does.
No More Mr. Nice Guy, the Megadeth cover.
Oh, yeah.
I love that song by Alice Cooper, the original.
Yeah, of
That's
course.
classic.
Oh, yeah.
Alice Cooper's
Love Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper's a heavy metal artist. He's in a
Oh.
bunch of horror movies. Prince of Darkness, Monster Dog.
Monster Dog.
Yeah,
That's
Monster
the one
Dog's actually pretty good.
Nightmare on Elm Street Part 6, Freddy's Dead.
Oh, yeah, he was his dad.
Yeah, he's in lots of stuff. I love Alice Cooper.
Prince of Darkness.
Oh, yeah, that's one of the best.
Bicycle-wielding fucking...
That is John
hobo.
Carpenter's most underrated movie.
I love that movie.
It's his most underrated. Because all his...
Satan in a jar.
It's terrifying.
It is.
That broadcast when they're sleeping, I know that counts as heavy metal.
Oh, no,
It doesn't matter.
It's the devil.
Metal and horror are very cross.
Yeah.
Heavy-
I mean, look at this. This is very horror right here.
Metal, horror, and wrestling. Like, I'm not the biggest metal guy, but I go to conventions and stuff. It's like, those are like everywhere. Metal, horror, and wrestling. They're like, you metalhead? It's like, no, I just like horror movies.
Oh, so you like wrestling?
Yeah, used
Back
to.
in the day.
In 2000.
We were Attitude Era fans.
And anything before Attitude Era is cool, but anything after I just got burnt out.
Yeah.
I was like early WWF, like the early Royal Rumbles, and they had like
those
Mike
are fun.
Singletary
Talking
versus
about
Andre the Giant,
Hakeem and shit.
Hakeem the Dream.
I love him.
Hacksaw Jim Duggan.
He's still wrestling.
Jake the Snake.
That guy's gonna wrestle till he dies.
Jesse the Body
Jesse,
Ventura.
how are you gonna get Jesse?
You're not a patriot.
I'll
You
fucking
don't
slam you.
What do you think there, Mean Gene?
I was a Navy SEAL.
We got. What are some other ones I'm thinking of? Do you ever see Hard Rock Zombies?
No.
Wait, is that the one? Like the entire band dies and they resurrect?
Yes.
And they were always
It's like
corpse
Nazis
paint?
and werewolves. It's been years since I've seen it. There's actually a poster in that room. It's nonsense.
Okay.
It's been years.
I like nonsense.
It's like bad, good. Like,
All
it's
right.
been years.
I mean-
Shock 'em Dead. You ever see that one? I think he sells his soul. When he
Yeah,
becomes
that's the
like
one
a-
where Michelangelo Badio's in it, right? Playing the double neck
I
guitar.
think so at the end. I've
Yeah.
always seen it the one time, but that
Okay.
one's one that always stuck out to me.
Yeah, I believe Shock 'em Dead's the one where Michelangelo Badio from
I
the
think you're
80s
right.
group Nitro. He's like the devil, and he's playing his famous double neck guitar. And yeah, he's like,
There were a lot of movies.
would you consider Detroit Rock City?
Yeah, that was
Not horror, but
Not
it has
horror,
heavy
yeah.
metal on it.
I mean, Gene Simmons is also in that movie Runaway with Tom Selleck.
I never actually watched it.
It's,
He's also
it's really good. It's so campy.
I've
I
wanted
love
to see it for years. I think I had the DVD.
He's got a fucking gun that fires like tracking missiles and shit. And yeah, have you ever seen this movie?
No.
Oh, you should. It's
I
like,
just want to
it's
see Gene
pure
Simmons
80s.
fight Tom Selleck's mustache.
He's also in a what's the other one? No, he's also in another Never Die Young or something. Never Die Young.
Was that
Gene
one with John
Simmons?
Stamos?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never seen that one either, but that one's supposed to be bonkers.
I saw a bit of that. Once again, like Joe Bob Briggs driving
Yeah.
a theater, and it was weird because I think he's like a hermaphrodite. in
Yeah,
that
there's
one?
something going on like
And
that. I
like John
remember
Stamos has to like fight. It was weird. It was really fucking weird. Like there was like a fight scene between those. Like I don't think my brain can process what's going on right now. This is strange.
Strange movie from what I understand.
What about Sandman from Temp?
Oh, Tempe?
Use
that used
Metallica
in the thing.
I remember watching the credits because it was another movie you had for Tempe, and we watched the
all
previews.
credits,
all the previews and stuff, and it was like,
I wonder how they got away with using Metallica, and then they used.
They figured nobody was gonna fucking see,
probably
right?
Not, probably not. There's Hard Rock Nightmare, which I think I've seen. I get that confused with another one. New Hollywood New Blood, which is an awful movie. I get that confused with Hard Rock Nightmare all the time. And then there's I think there's a werewolf in Hard Rock Nightmare.
Okay.
And then we got Demons, has a heavy metal soundtrack. That's a badass movie. That's probably the best of the one.
There were like in the early 2000s, there were a lot of movies that had pretty much strictly metal soundtracks. So like Alone in the Dark, which
Queen of the Damned had a.
That's the worst. I hate Queen of the Damned.
I know you
Turn
do.
it off.
I know you do. But the soundtrack had a lot of popular bands from that day. You know, like Static X was on there and stuff like that.
Justin Davis.
We never mentioned Strangeland.
Strangeland,
yeah. Dee Snider. Well, I mean,
Dee Snider does a great job in that. I was like,
it's been a long time since I've seen that one.
And would you say it's fair that Strangeland was Saw before Saw?
It definitely was a little ahead of its time. I don't think it's the best movie ever made, but it had some ideas in it that no one else did.
Dee Snider did a really good job, because sometimes when you see people like that, you're cross-genreing. It's like, you know, not everybody can get away with it. Like, not everybody's Rob Zombie. Can do a movie, a good movie, then do a good album, then do, you know, although, I'm sorry, Rob Zombie hasn't made a good album in quite some time.
I haven't heard any of his later albums, but I love Rob Zombie's movies. I know a lot of people hate his movies. I'm just like, I like them. I don't give a fuck.
If you don't like it,
he loves the old grindhouse aspect.
His movies are all like those.
They're homages to the old school.
They're all just different variations of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. And I love the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
When I saw House of a Thousand Corpses, it was like, this is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, except with kind of clowns or something.
With more comedic, you know.
What do they call that stuff? Psychotronic movies.
Yeah.
Just like, almost like Southern exploitation movies. And just like horror mix. They're definitely they're weird as shit. I'm a sucker for character actors. He uses all those old character actors. He even ends up using Jeffrey Lewis in Devil's Rejects. So I'm like, uses Tom Tolles. There's just some guys I really like, so that helps. There's still a lot more heavy metal. There's one called Heavy Metal Massacre, which has Falco in it, David Falco. I think he was a wrestler. He works on a label, I think, now, or some of his movies. He directed the movie that was like a semi-remake of Last House on the Left called Chaos that last minute got changed. It's a pretty brutal movie, actually. But I never watched Heavy Metal Massacre. It looks like an SOV, shot on video.
Yeah.
It looks pretty terrible, but I should probably watch it just to find out for myself. I'm trying to think. I think The Gate. We never even mentioned The Gate.
Sorry.
How did we not mention The Gate?
Because we're stupid.
Yeah.
I love The Gate.
That movie traumatized you as a kid. I remember you came over and you were like, there's this movie that freaked me out when I was real little.
It's when all those little playthings were eating the kid,
and
munching on the kid. I'm like, fuck.
I couldn't remember the movie. And then one day I put it in and I was like, let's watch this. And you're like, this is it. And I was like, oh, I love this movie.
Like, this is the movie.
I've seen this movie a bunch of
munch
times.
on this kid, man.
And the phone melts when the parents pick up like, you've been bad.
Yeah, dude.
Like, fuck me
I
up.
can't tell you how many times I'd go to bed and wrap the covers around me. Like, if those little fuckers come up my leg, dude, I'm going to kick them across this
All
room.
because the album was played backwards.
Yeah.
And that was part of it with all that weird shit. But that was like PG-13. There was
Actually, I think was it PG-13 or was it right before the PG-13 rating started coming out?
It was PG-13.
And even though this is comedy, a little more comedy, not really horror as much, but Little Nicky had a lot of satanic, demonic themes.
Chicago. Yeah.
And had, playing Chicago backwards, the worship Lucifer, and, all the Led Zeppelin, Metallica, Slayer, all the good references.
I'm sure we're forgetting a handful of
I'm sure
rock
we
and
are.
roll horror movies, but I went off like the top of my head. I think we hit a lot.
I mean, there was
all the main ones. I'm sure maybe we've missed one or two, but regardless, it's a good genre. It's
metal
fun.
and horror are very much linked.
I do hate when they have metal incorporated to a soundtrack for no reason.
Yeah.
They're like,
so we have 4 pop songs, and throw this metal.
Yeah, like one's like during a death scene.
Yeah.
Like, bro.
Lame.
Yeah, like
next.
It doesn't. You gotta score your movie.
Yeah, dude.
Or like have a nice needle drop occasionally put in your movie, not just every second. But I like if it's like Deathgasm can use the heavy metal because it's about heavy metal and they're playing the music, so it incorporates into it. But like you're just throwing it in randomly and it has nothing to do with the movie.
It's so out of place.
Like the Orphan Killer.
It's
cringeworthy
when it's out of place that bad.
I don't hate the Orphan Killer, but I definitely hate its use of soundtrack.
Yeah,
terrible.
And that can ruin a movie, man. It really can.
A heavy metal cover of "Cry Little Sister."
was the worst song I ever heard.
Dude, that's
was that the Manson one or
no? Cry Little Sister from the Lost Boys.
Yeah, from the Lost Boys. Didn't he just cover that?
This was like Cry Little Sister. It's like. And actually, the first time I tried to watch it,
where's the cover of Tim Capello's "I Still Believe"? God damn it!
I still believe.
Chains and a saxophone, and then a lot of oil.
Dude, I saw a video of him not too long ago, and all he's doing, from what it looks like, all this guy's doing is going around to like conventions held by middle-aged, old-ass ladies, taking his shirt off and playing saxophone for all these girls. Like, yeah, bitches, I still got it. Oh, I'm gonna blow my horn.
Who cares?
Well, yeah, honey, I gotta go on stage.
There's people that make a living doing that.
Yeah.
They'll be like an extra
more power to
Dawn
them.
of the Dead, and they'll go to conventions for years and tell the same stories over and again, and then people love it.
Yeah.
Hey, they're gonna pay for it
because they were close to that, you know. And it's just, you know, you were part of it, even if it wasn't the most gigantic part. You were still part of something that they love so much.
What's that line in the Pink Floyd song? Would you exchange the lead role in a cage for a walk on role in the war or something like that?
Yeah, for a lead role in a cage.
Yeah. Well, they were part of walk on role in the war. That's a tongue twister for me. Right? Pink Floyd.
I like the Floyd. I like it a lot.
I like it a lot.
My favorite album is their last one. I'm just kidding. I know people hate the last albums.
It was just a bunch of excerpts. Like, why did they even brand that as an album? I bought it.
It's like a lot of Rob Zombie's albums. Like, these are all remix albums. There's no new music.
No. Billy Deluxe too. Like, oh, why?
Because they're all remixed techno versions. But I don't really like techno.
Have you seen my wife's tits? They're on the cover.
Oh, I guess
all right, well,
let's check this
I'll
out.
buy it.
Sherry.
You know, this is ridiculous. How much is it? $50? $50?
This is, oh God, it feels like a sham.
Whitest kids you know. Remember that with the vacuum? Remember the vacuum? So that will suck your, that was rip your dick off. And then this is ridiculous. He's paying like $50.
Do you remember the greatest Whitest Kids You Know skit ever, Baked Beans?
I don't think I saw
Oh my God, dude, look up. I won't go into detail, but look up the Whitest Kids You Know, Baked Beans.
There's also the Grapist too.
Yeah, the Grapist.
The Grapist.
And Baked Beans. Baked Beans gets me into tears, even though I've seen it 100 times. I laugh like a small girl every time I see it.
So fucking weird.
You guys want to plug your channel one more time?
Yeah. Thanks for having us, Dave. I appreciate it, man.
Thank you, man.
Once again, we are the Thralls of Metal, and we look really forward to being a part of the Screaming Toilet family and doing reviews for you guys, as well as continuing to update our own channel, Thralls of Metal, on YouTube.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah, we're looking forward. Whatever you guys send us, of course, Naturally Metal.
You guys are a quartet too, for you.
Yeah, there's two other guys.
The Tommy and Jam and John.
And that's what we like about what we do, because we all, we have different areas of metal that we all enjoy maybe a little bit more so than the other person. So there's a good wide variety of us to give reviews.
Yeah,
so it's not just pigeonholed into one thing.
You guys can have intelligent arguments too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's always good, to have like a little bit of disagreement.
Yeah, that's it would suck if we agreed on everything.
Like, I like it as well.
I like it too. Although sometimes we'll do reviews based on what we like, and sometimes that'll happen and be like, I really like that part. I really like that part.
We finally got John to do a black metal.
Yeah. So we're trying to switch up how we do reviews.
He didn't hate it. It's like, see, you're growing a little bit. That's good.
Well, you guys got anything else to say?
Nice
for having you.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was fun.
Awesome,
make sure you subscribe. These guys will probably come back here and there. I'd like to have guests on there so we can just talk about.
And
bullshit.
we'd love to have you maybe come and do review an album.
I know nothing about music.
That's perfect. Good. That's the blank canvas. It's the most honest, raw opinion.
Embarrass myself. You gotta give me something. You gotta give me a concept album.
Sure.
With lyrics
we'll make like a compilation of stuff we all pick, like individual tracks or something.
And just
like
get your
that.
opinion.
Like, all right,
Dave's a lyric man. He likes the lyrics, so we'll have to give him
all
something
pig
that's.
squeals, got it. What did he say? Like, it's mostly
a lot of.
It sounds like Norman Bates killing a pig.
That's exactly it.
Well, you know the sound when someone clears a clogged drain? Yeah, that.
Remember Pigs, the movie? It's someone just stuck an audio recording of pigs and then put it on top.
I never watched Pigs, the movie. I have it though.
I know you do.
On Blu-ray.
Are you sure you've never watched it? Because I feel like I feel like you're the person I've watched Pigs. Who in the fuck else would I watch Pigs with?
Did you watch Slaughterhouse? Maybe.
No, it was the one where the pigs were eating the people. They were all like zombied out eating people.
Oh, okay. I'm thinking of a different one.
Because the farmers were like feeding them human remains, and then they got that taste for.
Are you sure you're not thinking of Motel Hell where they bury him
up
down?
to the neck with the throat?
And then they cook him up and feed him?
Yeah. Okay.
And where's the pig
that's
head?
a great movie.
Yeah.
Okay. I think we're out of here, guys.
Sorry, otherwise we'll ramble forever.